Okay, welcome to this meeting on the 23rd of September. Councillors, just a reminder that we are webcasting, and if you could use your microphones. I've heard that sometimes that people haven't been able to hear. I would like to acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge the Wiradjuri people, the custodians of this land on which we are meeting, and pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. I see that everybody's here, so there'll be no apologies. Confirmation of minutes on the last meeting. If I could get somebody to move.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Move Councillor Ring, second Councillor Statham. Those in favour? Unanimous. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest, so we move to commemorations and announcements. Any commemorations?
I have two.
Councillor McAndrew.
Yes, thank you. Firstly, Mayor, sadly I acknowledge the passing of Robert Ian Jack earlier this month. Robert Ian Jack was a prominent historian and associate professor at the University of Sydney, and he dedicated a lot of his historical research to preserving and promoting the history of the Lithgow region. He was a principal consultant for the heritage studies of the city of Greater Lithgow 22 years ago, wrote detailed studies of Lithgow blast furnace and Lithgow pottery, had an abiding interest in the pastoral world of Andrew Brown, was an expert on some of the founding families of the region. Ian will be remembered for generously sharing his knowledge and passion for the history of the region, not just through his published research, but also tirelessly speaking on the subject, giving tools and sharing his enthusiasm at every opportunity. I take this time to extend our sympathy to Ian's wife and family and to all those in the Lithgow community that knew him. Secondly, I'd like to acknowledge and congratulate the Workies Wolves First Division Rugby League side and the Workies Wolves Under-18 side for winning, respectively, the Group 10 Grand Final a couple of weeks ago.
There was the Workmen's Club it was the Storm under 16.
Sorry. The Workmen's Club, I'll deal with the First Division side first, who won the recent Group 10 Grand Final. What's equally important, they went through the complete season undefeated. So that's a great achievement. And I'm glad you reminded me, it is the Storm under 16 side also won their relevant final, and I understand they went through the complete season undefeated as well, so I congratulate both of those sides.
Thank you, Councillor McAndrew.
Yes, Mayor Thompson, I have a couple of interesting announcements tonight. A very wonderful one is congratulations to the staff at Tabulum Health Centre in Portland for their awards in Sydney announced this week. Some outstanding awards were given to the staff at Tabulum, and mostly it was for the playgroups which have been previously helped by council funding with Victoria, and it was to do with the international children's groups. So a very big coup for Portland Tabulum Cottages. It was a very highly contested event and they actually had some marvellous success. I'd also like to bring to our attention the emergency services, the SES, the VRA and the Rapid Response Team, along with the many rural fire brigades, did outstanding service for our community on the 20th of August at Lithgow fires. And I think that we need to be very proud of them. And I'm sure that Councillor McAndrew's notice of motion tonight will reinstate that they saved a lot of homes, they saved a lot of what could have been lives, and it was something that I went and had a very good look at and came away in tears, but it could have been a lot worse. We've got a great emergency services in our area. Congratulations to the Pipe Band, Daffodils at Rydal and the Taranaki Community Group, which all had very special events in the very recent past, I beg your pardon. Something tonight that I would like to announce is that something I've been putting a lot of thought into. It's engulfed my life for the last week. I believe I have to make an honourable choice tonight. and abstained from voting for the mayoral deputy election. It's not something I've taken easy. I believe that each one of those candidates would not expect my vote. I have not heard from the 3 candidates to have a vision for Lithgow. One candidate contacted me. It's not just about a vote, it's about what they want to do for our local government area. And I just would like to make it...
I take the point of order, and I've got to uphold the point of order. Thank you.
Absolutely happy with that. I will be abstaining from
Thank you.
voting.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to public forum, because we are...
I have a commemoration announcement.
Oh, sorry.
I'd just like to pass my condolences on to Steve Ring and his family, who Steve lost his mum recently, travelled down to go to the funeral, so that one, and also the Lithgow Panthers women's hockey team, who were premiers in the Western Premier League hockey recently.
Yeah, thanks, thanks very much, Councillor Goodsall. I jumped the gun a little bit too, because I've got a commemoration that I'd like to bring forward, and that's the passing of Shirley Redding, because she did a lot for the community, and I also pass on all councillors' condolences to Councillor Ring on the loss of his mother, Councillor Ring. Any other commemorations? Thank you. Okay, just before we get to public forum, just a declaration of the webcasting. I inform those in attendance at this meeting that the meeting is being webcast, and those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements concerning any person, councillors or employee, and refrain from discussing those matters subject to closed council proceedings as indicated in clause 14.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice. And also, if possible, could you all have your mobile phones turned off? Thank you. I have 2 that have requested to speak to public forum, and that the first is Jim Whitty. Whitty, yes. If you could just state your name and if you're a resident of Lithgow and ratepayer, thank you.
Mr Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, I am Jim Whitty. I've been representing the community of Lithgow for nearly 40 years, and on Friday the 16th of this month, we had a fire out there, and as Councillor Statham said, the Rural Fire Service, the Blue Mounds, Lithgow and Lithgow owe so much to these people. What they did out there in 5 days, you could not believe unless you was out there. Now, the only thing that saved us, they identified when the fire started at View Street. They did everything available to the fire service to prevent this fire going over the mountain on the plateau beyond Lithgow and going straight down the Blue Mountains. Lithgow was first in line, and they stopped this by about 50 metres after 5 days. They had 3 helicopters, ground service, the remote area firefighters. They put the specials in because they couldn't get trucks there, and the work they did was beyond belief. And Lithgow, everyone owes them a great deal of gratitude. The resources they put in that fire was beyond belief. People couldn't believe just how bad that was till they went out and had a look at what actually happened out there. What the problem was, there's been a self-sown pine forest which has been going for about 45 years, not under control. It's on, when you go down Walgan Road, you head due north and you go into Walgan. It's on the left-hand side of Walgan Road, facing all the houses. There's a big pine forest there, self-sown. On the other side, where the Commonwealth Old Open Cut was, they just planted pine trees instead of rehabilitating the place. And these pine trees, they put in, the fellas call them mongrel trees because they're classified now as a noxious weed because they self-sow. If you don't maintain, they just go into a massive pine forest. And this is what they've done on both sides of the road. And the one that got on the northeastern side is the one that now cost Lithgow another bushfire. When it hit from View Street down the back of Maddox Lane, which isn't very far, they finished up when the fire hit the forest. It went over the top of fire trucks. It just exploded. They had 3 helicopters, a watch. They had fixed-wing aircraft there within minutes fighting this, and they had the ground crew, like all the trucks. I've never seen so many trucks from Wentworth Falls, everywhere. There's one from out of, where was he, from Sunny Corner, actually saved the back of several houses around my place. They come down my yard because it's pretty clear, and they saved my back shed. what they'd park in front of all the houses and they's watching for this fire to come over the front of the house and light the houses up. A few front yards got fires in them. But as one lady said, as you would have seen on TV on Channel 7, was really lucky because it went over the top of the house and landed in our backyard. We lost sheds, hay sheds, a boat, caravans, but no homes was lost. But these fireballs almost cost me son his life. Down the middle of my yard where there's a double garage, he's putting out all these spot fires. This massive fireball went over his head and hit all these big pile of logs that was stayed out in the next door's yard and just exploded, took all the air away from him. He's never been in the bushfire in his life. And he said, I just couldn't breathe that. I didn't know what happened. And what was that? Oh, yeah. He said, I didn't know what happened, Dad. He said, I just couldn't breathe. And I was talking to one of the expert blokes that went in a blue uniform. He said, what happens when the fireball goes over your head, it sucks all the air away and your lungs just collapse and you die. And now anyone who's been in Lithgow for a while would remember Gerard Martin's house when a fireball went over the roof and two of the chaps died on that side and the two we lost on the top of Scotsman's Hill. And this is all because of these fires and what they do to the air and all the air around you. So without these trucks being there and all the service they put into it, we would have lost between 25 and 30 houses in Walgan Road, probably some lives. But these fellows fought from Friday right through the Tuesday with the helicopters, with everything. And they stopped the fire by 50 metres of getting on the plateau with these specialists up the back with helicopters. And Lithgow and everybody should really put a debt of thanks to these fellows. And I honestly think council should come out because the risk isn't finished. The local area captain came to me, he said, we'd come over and have a look at this. And I went over the fire shed straight in front of me. This line of trees runs right down the front of Walgan Road, one part of this fire station. He said, come to the back. The back hasn't burnt. And from Castlereagh Highway down to Maddox Lane, there's a massive paddock with grass as long as that, and it's all dead. Anyone goes over the bridge down to the bottom of Newsbeck's Hill, they drop a bumper. That's got about 500 metres to go to hit the back of this forest. And what's in the front, he said, this will just explode and it'll be worse than the last fire. And it'll go back through the trees and back towards the mountain and probably over the mountain to Lithgow. I really suggest that council come out. I'll take you around and show you what the threat is and how dangerous this can be. And when you have a look at these forests, you'll understand what they call a mongrel pine. They self-seed in places you can't walk between these trees. They just grow everywhere. And the risk is still there. And the houses in Walgan and Lithgow are still under threat if we can't get something done about those trees. Where I live, it's just straight across the bushfire shed. And I spoke to about 8 or 10 different brigades over the time. And they all said, these pine forests aren't allowed in residential areas. They said, this one's in the middle of Lithgow. This shouldn't be here. And that's from Wentworth Falls, Sunny Corn, Rydal, Wang, everywhere. They said, these things should not be here. They're too dangerous to the community, to everybody. They said, how we save all them homes? They said, we don't know. It's just a gift of God. And how they stopped the getting over the mountain on the plateau to Lithgow and the Blue Mountains? Another gift. And I think, honestly, if we can get someone to come out, I'll take you around and show you what the risk is, and you can look what happened, and this can happen again anytime if that grass is lit down the back of this forest. Thank you very much.
Look, I'm sure that is going to... Yeah, it deserves a round of acclamation, but let me say that I'm sure that is going to be addressed tonight, Mr Whitty.
Very good.
Mr Anthony Craig.
Thanks, Mr Mayor and councillors, for the opportunity to have a speak here again tonight. From time to time, people get a bit confused about things, and so I just wanted to bring out a statement today, just so there's no confusion between members of the public or council staff. I received a letter from Lithgow Council dated the 10th of the 1st stating Lithgow Council does not have a Foreign Affairs Department in relation to me lobbying council at a public forum back in November 2018 regarding human rights concerns in West Papua. Council declined invitation to meet the two West Papuan refugees, Baz and Sunny, from the refugee camps in Port Moresby, who came to Lithgow in December 2018. The Webster Dictionary defines foreign affairs as a matter having to do with international relations and with the interests of the home country and foreign countries. My recent GIPA request to Lithgow Council confirms that Lithgow Council did have a sister city relationship with a city in China back in March 2011 and is now part of the Community Development Committee. The Australian Centre for Excellence in Local Government 2015 report titled Sister Cities and International Alliances confirmed councils around Australia are involved in international relations, foreign affairs, for the sister city relationships, and they include Lithgow Council, Albury, Penrith, Melbourne, Darwin, Orange, and a number of others. So just to clarify that, thanks very much.
Is there anybody in the public gallery that wished to speak on anything on the agenda? Gentleman up the back.
My name's Jason Green, and I just wanted to talk about the notice.
Just your address as well, Jason, if you could, please.
Okay, Gangbanang Road in Lowther, Oak Park, my property name. I just want to talk about the notice of motion in terms of item 8.5. Dear General Manager, Mayor, Councillor, staff and the public gallery, I'd first like just wanted to thank Council and the General Manager and the staff because it was your successful bids in terms of our area getting 2 new mobile phone towers. As a result of our hard work, including Council, we were successful in getting 2 mobile phone towers under the Mobile Black Spot Program number 4, with our local MP, Mr Andrew G, announcing this in May. Both Lowther will receive a mobile phone Optus tower and Canimbla Valley will receive a Telstra tower. Both towers will be turned on in June 2020. I'm here tonight to represent our 150 community members of our Facebook group and also includes the Canimbla Valley Sports and Rec Club and the Hartley Progress Association. And as you know, we've been working towards having better mobile coverage in our valley for some time. We currently have a situation where Telstra has requested submissions on its proposal and have extended this till the 17th of September. The community of Megalong Valley, Canimbla Valley, Gangbanang and the surrounding areas have been waiting for their mobile phone tower to be switched on. As you can see, I've attached a map there which shows where the proposed tower is to be. And as you can see there, that'll give coverage in terms of mobile phone reception to both Canimbla and Gangbanang area and also the Megalong Valley. So it covers a huge distance in terms of coverage. It's called a macro cell and it can cover from 8 to 32 kilometres. This tower will not only give coverage in the Megalong Valley, but it'll also give coverage to people in Table Rock Road, Cullen Ben Bong Road, Marsden Swamp Road, Glen Chi Road, Gangbanang Road, the 6-foot track, which are all in the Lithgow government area. There's no doubt this tower will save lives. As the terrain in the local area and the landscape, it's impossible to get mobile coverage in all areas. Over the years, we've had community members have experienced situations like heart attacks, serious car accidents, funnel web bites, carbon monoxide poisoning for a family, bushfires, and even our emergency personnel have experienced concerns for the area, especially deep in the valley. So as local residents and ratepayers, we just request Council to support this proposal in providing the important mobile coverage in the area. This mobile phone tower will improve the lives and will save a life. And we hope you can continue to support this important issue. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jason. Is there any other from the public gallery who wants to speak on an item on the agenda?
Thank you. My name's Alan Beecroft. I live at 68 Walgan Road, Lithgow. And I'd just like to congratulate the council on the footpath we've got. I think it's a very good job. But there's just one little detail, the finishing of it. I'd like you to come and have a look at it and just see how much better it could be if it was finished properly. Not the footpath, but the edges of the footpath. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Beecroft. Anybody else in the public gallery would like to speak on public forum? If not, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda.
Mayor, before you enter, I have a procedural motion, if that's all right. I'd like to, if I could, bring item 911 forward, the deputy mayoral elections, and get it over and done with, if that'd be all right.
I'm sure that'd be fine. Have we got a seconder for that? I don't think we need a seconder for a procedural motion. All in favour? Thank you. I shall hand over now to the returning officer, which is the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, item 9.11, the nominations for an election for the position of Deputy Mayor for the 2019-2020 period. There's a paper before you with a recommendation. That recommendation is to note the report and the procedure for the election of Deputy Mayor. It's resolved that a Deputy Mayor to be elected for a one-year term. It's to hold an election for the position of Deputy Mayor using the open voting method, and to determine a fee that is to be paid to the Deputy Mayor, if any. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that motion, or an alternate one?
Mover, Councillor Coleman, and seconder, Councillor Smith. Those in favour?
Unanimous. Okay. Thank you, councillors. Council's resolved to conduct this election through the open voting method by way of ordinary ballot. I confirm that I've got 3 nominations for the position of Deputy Mayor. Councillor Cassandra Coleman has nominated. She has the nominators are Councillor Stephen Leslie and Councillor Cassandra Coleman, and Councillor Coleman has accepted the nomination. I have a nomination for Councillor Steve Ring. Councillor Goodwin and Councillor Goodsell have nominated Councillor Ring, and Councillor Ring has accepted that nomination. I have a nomination for Councillor Wayne McAndrew. He's nominated by Councillor Joe Smith and by Councillor Ray Thompson, and Councillor Wayne McAndrew has accepted that nomination. The method to be conducted is by way of open voting, so by way of alphabetical order, I'll ask for those votes in support of each of the nominees. Councillor Coleman is the first person, so could I ask for those councillors in support of Councillor Coleman as Deputy Mayor, please raise their hands. Record 2 votes, please. Councillor Leslie, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Steve Ring is the next nominee. Could I ask for those councillors in support of Councillor Steve Ring for the position of Deputy Mayor, raise their hands. 1, 2, 3. Okay, could I have it recorded that Councillor Goodwood, Councillor Ring and Councillor Goodsell supported Councillor Ring. The final nominee is Councillor Wayne McAndrew. Could I ask those councillors supporting Councillor McAndrew for the position of Deputy Mayor to please raise their hands. We have 3 supporters for Councillor McAndrew. That's Councillor McAndrew, Councillor Smith and Councillor Thompson. Ladies and gentlemen, on the basis of that vote, Councillor Coleman, having received only 2 votes, is excluded from the count. We then proceed to conduct another count for the 2 remaining nominees. By way of alphabetical order again, for that, Councillor Ring. Sorry, Councillor McAndrew, you're quite right. So, for those persons in support of Councillor McAndrew, could you please raise your hands? 1, 2, 3, 4. Could record that Councillor McAndrew, Councillor Smith, Councillor Coleman and Councillor Thompson supported Councillor Andrew. Those councillors in support of Councillor Ring, please raise your hands. Councillor Goodsell, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Goodwin and Councillor Ring. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a tied position for the 2 nominees. In accordance with the procedures for the conduct of this election, if 2 are tied, we then conduct a ballot, and the one to be excluded is chosen by lot. So I will ask the two nominees to please write their names. With respect, it is. Just check that. Is it excluded or drawn?
I think it's drawn.
It's drawn by lot. Sorry, my apologies. Drawn by lot. Could we take those down? Give those. Ask them to write. Could you please write your names on the pieces of green paper? Michael, could you collect those and put them in that? That's what it says?
That's one out, this is the mayor.
No, no.
All candidates, one excluded is to be chosen.
By lot.
Candidates are tied on the lowest number of votes.
Ladies and gentlemen, just confirming the details. Councillor Leslie, you raised a point of order in relation to the exclusion. According to the legislation, it reads at point 6, if at any stage during the count under subclause 1 or 2, two or more candidates are tied on the lowest number of votes, the one excluded is to be chosen by lot.
Yeah, that's if two or more, I think.
I just refer to point on this point 2B. Point 2B, if there are only two candidates, and I presume that means two candidates left, but if there are only two candidates, the candidate with the higher number of votes is elected. If there are only two candidates and they are tied, the one elected is the one chosen by lot. So you pull a name out of the hat, that's the vote who wins.
Are all councillors happy with that process?
Yes.
So the one to be chosen out of the by lot will be the Deputy Mayor. I'll do it. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the Deputy Mayor position for 2009 and 2020 is Councillor Steve Ring.
Congratulations, Councillor Ring. So we revert back to the order of business, and the first order of business is notice of motion. Councillor Goodwin, kiss and drop. If I could have a seconder, Councillor Ring.
Yes, ma'am. This has been raised to me that some schools are lacking in this feature. In particular, Lithgow Public School. Ideally, this feature should be at each school. For safety issues, it allows parents to drop off their children at school on the correct side of the road near the school without breaking parking laws and incurring expensive penalty notices. This will also alleviate school drop-off pressures from staff, parents, council and police and become a win-win situation for all involved. So my recommendation is that Council/TALC committee provide a report on the kiss and drop areas of our local schools.
Councillor Ring.
I must admit, I don't know the entire problem, but I have looked at the situation out at Wallerawang. I don't think it'd hurt to get a report back on what the safety issues are and what can be done to improve it. So I fully support the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to speak against this. We've got a number of schools in the area, and not all of them would need this, and some of them might need it desperately. But it's, in my view, what is needed is for those schools themselves to approach council to ask for the traffic committee to give a report on it, and then because they've asked for this, the traffic committee will automatically give a report. But we don't do it il globo. We don't do it for schools that aren't needed. We don't do it for, say, Meadow Flat School, which clearly doesn't need it. And so it's just, it's solving a problem with a hammer when really it's not needed that way. We just need to let the various advise the schools, or if it's important enough for the schools, they will contact the council themselves. But it's to me, it's not needed. We just let the system work.
Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah, I'm going to speak in favour of it. I thought Councillor Goodwin is simply asking for provide a report. Well, I expect that report will provide the schools that need it and the schools that don't. I see nothing wrong with what's being proposed. I think it's proper and appropriate.
Look, as Mayor, I've had various people come to me saying that there's no stopping signs and they get booked for just dropping their children off, and I support Councillor Goodwin in what he's saying as well. Any other speakers? Okay, I shall put that. Those in favour of the recommendation? Those against? Councillor Leslie against. The rest of council for. Notice of motion, Councillor Statham. Columbarium at Cullambullen.
Very happy to second, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mrs Agnes Tilley from Cullambullen has been contacting me now for some time in regard to the columbarium. I believe after a very interesting report from Mr Jonathan Edgecombe today that there appears to be 42 niches left in total, and 32 of these niches are currently either being full or reserved for future internment. Therefore, there are about 10 niches that are currently empty and available for booking. Each niche has its fee, of course, but the most important thing here that, you know, it's an ageing population out there, and I'm delighted to hear Mr Edgecombe's report today. You might like to add to my report, if you would like to, please, Mr Edgecombe, to inform the councillors that may have not got this recent email as to the reasonably urgent matter of this situation.
If I would need to...
yes, I'd like a seconder.
I would like the seconder to speak first. Thank you.
Look, I support this, Mayor. The GM's aware that I raised this some time ago. I also had a phone call from Mrs Tilley in relation to this. I did see what was provided by Mr Edgecombe by way of email today. However, I was understood that even of those 10 that are left, that some of those are already pre-booked as well. But in any event, I do agree with Councillor Statham. It's getting filled up pretty quickly, sadly, pretty quickly, and I think we need to have a look at it, and I support what's being asked for.
Do you want to add to that, Mr Edgecombe? You've been asked to.
Yeah, so we did analyse the last 15 years of data with relation to the Cullambullen columbarium. At the current rate of use, the expected lifespan of the columbarium is between 2 and 5 years. This financial year, we do have funds in our operational plan to construct the concrete footings for the columbarium, and next financial year we are proposing to put together a funding bid for the council's consideration to construct the actual wall itself. So that will be put to you as part of the budget process.
Leslie.
I don't have a problem with the motion as such. I just have a problem with the commentary, and I would not like to see funds coming from the drought funding. I believe it's too remote to issue funds from the drought funding as stated in the commentary for an issue such as this.
Irrespective of the commentary, there is funds in the budget for it, so I'm pretty sure that that's been taken in account by the councillors. Any other speakers to that? Councillor Ring.
Mayor Thompson, the email from Mr Edgecombe today makes it clear money is being spent this year for a base and that it will go into the budget bid for next year. In principle, I support it, but I don't support this motion. When it is discussed in the budget process, then I'm happy to support it at that stage. But I think the information that was provided today, and I sent out to all the councillors, I'd asked Mr Edgecombe for a report. He sent it quickly back to me. I sent it out to everyone. Basically, it's in hands. I don't think there's a shortage. If it's work's being done next year, I don't think it's a drama. I think there's adequate there based on the statistics that have been provided.
If there is a shortfall, I'm sure that we can bring it forward. That should be the case. If there is a shortfall, if we could even add that as another dot point, if there's a shortfall, we bring it forward. Would you be happy with that, Councillor Statham? Yeah.
Mayor Thompson, I'd be happy to move an amendment.
I'm not moving an amendment. I'm just saying that Councillor Statham may put a dot point in there to say that if there is a shortfall.
Possibly be redone along the lines of the council give priority for funding the columbarium at Cullumbullen in the 2021 budget papers. And then a second point can be along the lines of if demand requires, we bring that works forward this year.
Can I speak to that?
Councillor Statham.
No, I
Right,
won't
reply.
accept the amendment because Mr Jonathan Edgecombe's done a lot of work on this today. I believe that he's already got it in train and some is going to get done in this budget. I'm very happy for the remainder to be done in the extra budget and hopefully we won't have many deaths at Cullumbullen.
Okay, thank you. And then I shall put that then as is. Those in favour? Against? Councillor Ring again. 8.3, notice of motion, Councillor Statham, extension of Lithgow City Council library hours.
Happy to second for the purpose of debate.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Yes, Mayor Thompson, may I make one amendment to this? I've made one mistake after reading several letters from several people requesting library hours be adjusted. It should have read 6:30. I have it 6 p.m, which it already closes at 6 p.m. They actually requested 7, so I thought I would go halfway. So if I could please alter that from 6 to 6:30. I realise it's 30 minutes more for council staff to be considered, and if it was just to be on a 6-month basis, that we could accommodate more people after work at between 6 and 6:30. I don't use the library at that hour of the day, but I know there's been over 30 people contact me at functions or events or at the library to see if it was at all possible just to have those hours extended. It's only 30 minutes, I think it's pretty fair, and whether it be at 2:30 in the afternoon, I think that's up to councillors to debate that. The main complaint to me was if it could be open till 6:30, which is 30 minutes more, 5 days a week.
Councillor Coleman.
The reason I second this, Mayor, is because I have a few questions in regards to how this would go through change management. The staff will have to be involved. That means the JCC will have to be involved and the union will have to be involved. If it's an extra half an hour, we need to understand how that affects the staff and how that will go through. So those questions, if I could have answered, that'd be great.
Mr McGrath.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, Councillor Coleman, you're correct. We would have to consult with the staff. But I guess the more pressing issue is funding as well. We don't have a budget that would extend that far this financial year, so we would have to think about what savings we could find to be able to fund such an additional opening hour. But you're absolutely correct, yeah, we would have to go through that process.
So that means that if we don't have the funding, and it has to go through change management, and we don't have the staff to go through with this, then it might not become a reality after all.
Well, we would have to look at our rosters. We would have to look at whether we would have to employ additional staff, be it casual or part-time staff, to cover the span. At this stage, I wasn't aware that 6:30 was the proposal. As you can see from the timetable published at the bottom of the page, the library is open till 6 p.m, including the branches, although not 5 days a week. But Lithgow Library itself opens 5 days a week until 6 p.m.
Perhaps the motion, perhaps it's, oh, sorry, let me start again. Perhaps this should have gone through staff first before it came here.
Yes, the wording of 6 o'clock, the staff have addressed the 6 o'clock in the particular motion, even though you've meant 6:30, Councillor Statham. Anybody else like to speak on this?
Mayor Thompson, I can't support it as it stands. There are budget issues, there's staffing issues as raised by Councillor Coleman. This is something that I think Councillor Statham could put up as a councillor initiative in another month or 2 months when we're asked to put up our initiatives for the budgeting process. Then it can be discussed, the staff can actually look at it, get the feedback, get the costings, then we can look at what can or cannot be reasonably done. But I'd also want a lot more information on who's going to use it and is there a real demand.
Councillor Goodsall.
Could I just ask, through you to Mr McGrath, what the cost would be involved? And that's just to the 6, not the 6:30, just the extra 2.5 hours over the 3 facilities in a week over 6 months?
It's been the only one that I have been asked to have extended hours on.
I would nearly think that Mr McGrath would have to take that on notice. He wouldn't have been able to.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, to give you an accurate, even an accurate estimate, I'd need to take it back, but I can do that, and I can certainly supply the councillors with that information.
Okay, any other speakers? Okay, I shall put the recommendation. Those in favour? Those against? I declare it lost. Councillor Statham and Councillor Coleman for. Notice of motion, Lithgow Rural Fire Service. Councillor McAndrew.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to add 2 extra points now as a result of the presentation by Mr Whitty from the forum tonight, or from the public gallery tonight, and I hope the seconder would okay that. The second point, the on-site inspection, but not so much inspection, but on-site, a look by on-site by councillors and the GM to go out and have a look at it. And 3, that the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and GM organise a meeting, an urgent meeting with RFS to discuss the issues raised in the public forum tonight. But coming back to the original...
you happy to second? Thank you.
Coming back to the original point, Mayor, and I just want to read from it. Our local Lithgow RFS on Friday the 6th of September and continuing from that time responded to the fire emergency at Lithgow, putting their own volunteers in harm's way to protect people and property. The ability to respond to the emergency so quickly and successfully is in no small way due to the dedication, ability and proximity of our local controllers to respond immediately to the problem and manage the Section 44 call-out locally. And recall at a previous council meeting, this issue was raised as urgent business, that our people on the ground do a good job. We've got to make sure the coordination and the control of it remains on the ground within our local community. The Lithgow emergency is testament to the success of local volunteers having the ability to respond to and control any local emergency with backup volunteers when necessary, travelling from other areas to assist as our volunteers respond to other distant emergencies when necessary. And the first point, and the important point, that Council thank and commend our local RFS fire management for the efforts they have made in protecting our Lithgow and Lithgow communities. Mayor, I went out and had a look at the area after the fire. I was just astounded. I was surprised that there were not more loss of property. The job that our firefighters did on the day must have been absolutely magnificent. I recall the wind, I recall the heat. And I believe an emergency situation was called. It was declared by the New South Wales government at that time. And I can't say how lucky that we've got such good people on the ground to respond so quickly. And Mr Whitty has reaffirmed that tonight and reiterated that. So, Mayor, if I could get support for 1, 2 and 3, that would be good.
Mr Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I work at Angus Place Colliery, and I remember the occasion when, in referring to why we need to keep this service in Lithgow, is I remember the time that Angus Place Colliery had a serious injury, and as we know, our police and our fire, it all comes out of Dubbo. Councillor Goodwood could most probably enlighten me, but I think that's pretty right. When the ambulance come from Bathurst to this injured person at Angus Place, they didn't know where to go. That's why we need to have this kept in our local area. 45 minutes it took for the ambulance to get to the Castlereagh Highway at Dukes' garage because they didn't know where to go. And this is the system that we work under. It's not good enough. We need to maintain what we've got. And I was out at the fire site yesterday. I agree with Mr Whitty. It was horrendous. From my place, I thought Lidsdale House was on fire. That's how intense the flames, and everybody's seen the footage of that coming up Lidsdale. I thought our tennis shed was gone, General Manager. I thought we'd do it, but it was intense. And how the people of Lidsdale, their houses weren't burned down, I'll never know. But I'm right behind Councillor McAndrew on this. We need to maintain and keep this service in Lithgow.
Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Everything said about the RFS in the commentary of this motion is very accurate, and the comments made by Councillor Statham earlier this evening is also very pertinent. And Mr Whitty gave a graphic description of just what Lidsdale and Lithgow, for that matter, owes the RFS. And of course, the RFS and all our emergency services deserve our thanks. The problem with this motion, though, is that it's not the role of an individual councillor to put up such a motion. The proper procedure is for motions such as this to be put forward by yourself, Mr Mayor, as a mayoral minute. Put forward by a councillor, yourself, chosen to be our spokesman, given prominent place at the beginning of a council and not slipped into the business paper as item 8.4 on the agenda.
Point of order.
No. I'm speaking to the motion.
I've got a point of order and I'm going to rule on it, and I'm ruling you out of order. Councillor Leslie, I've ruled you out of order. Please sit. Please sit.
I want to move a procedural motion.
Well, you can move a procedural motion, but without the banter. Okay.
I'll move a procedural motion that this motion lie on the table because we don't want to set a precedent where these important matters are just put up as a way of trying to promote individual councillors. We need to have this matter properly by the council.
I'm ruling you out of order, Councillor Leslie. Please sit.
I've moved a motion.
No, you haven't.
I've moved a motion.
I'm not accepting it. I'm not accepting it.
I've moved that this motion lie on the table.
You've moved a procedural motion, yes, and I'm not accepting it. Okay.
And, well, I moved dissent from your motion. I moved dissent from your ruling.
Move dissent to the ruling. How does the council feel?
You can't decide not to accept a dissent motion.
Yes, I can.
Mayor Thompson, if he moves a motion of dissent, that's a debate between you and you must. And we vote on it. And we vote on it. Yes.
And I've already put that to the council. How does the council feel? Are you going to accept the dissent motion or not? I'm not. Righto. The council's not accepting it.
Apologies, Mayor Thompson.
Do I move a dissent motion for your dissent ruling then?
Yeah.
So I move a dissent motion for your second ruling. This could go on forever.
We put your ruling, Mayor, to the councillors, and the councillors decide where your dissent ruling is right or wrong.
I'm putting that to the council. Is my dissent ruling right or wrong? Those in favour?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to speak to my dissent motion.
Oh, look, I've just about had enough of you, Councillor Leslie. Please sit.
Mr Mayor,
I've never seen...
Mr Mayor, can I recommend to actually go and get some ruling on meeting procedure? Because this is a very simple matter. A dissent motion is, I move it, and then you speak to it, and then you put to it. And by the way, don't ask the General Manager. He won't even let you speak to a dissent motion.
Well, I'm going to move that the motion be put
You can't do that until I finish speaking to you.
With all respect, if I may, Mayor Thompson, under the Code of
I'm moving that the motion be put, which I can.
Under the
moving the motion
rules,
be put.
Mayor Leslie has the right to speak. Councillor Leslie has the right to speak. Mayor Thompson has the right to reply. Then we vote on it. That applies to every councillor.
And that is my understanding that just took place. Mayor
Not
Leslie
mine.
has spoke on it. Mayor Leslie has spoke on it and gave...
Look,
I'm getting
look,
as bad
excuse
I'm
me.
getting as bad as Councillor Ring. Councillor
excuse-
Leslie has spoken on it and you've dissented, Mayor. We're entitled to vote on it.
I said that the Councillor Leslie is out of order. Now we can vote on it. I'm saying that Councillor Leslie is out of order. Can I still put that to the council? Please. Those in favour of my ruling, please raise your hand. Those against? Coleman, Leslie and Ring.
Mr Mayor, are we going to deal with the dissent motion now?
I've just dealt with it.
No, you dealt with something else.
You can stand there and play silly buggers all night if you want to, Councillor Leslie, but I'm not going to put up with it.
What I'm trying to do, Mr Mayor...
Yes, you are.
What I'm trying to do, Mr Mayor, is to protect you and the position of Mayor.
Look, I am more than happy with the notice of motion that has been put up by Councillor McAndrew.
Yes, because you're too lazy to do it yourself.
I'm point of order, and I want an apology.
Yeah.
I want an apology to you, Mayor, from Councillor Leslie. I'm moving that formally as a point of order.
Well, yes, Mr Mayor, I do apologise for that.
Councillor McAndrew, right to reply.
Yeah, thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor Thompson.
There hasn't been any...
I'd like the right to speak to it before.
Right.
There's a right of reply.
Councillor Ring.
I do support the recommendations. There are errors in the commentary. If we're going to have an on-site meeting, then I think it's imperative that we have the RFS there, Gary Hansen, Mick Holland. We need to be looking at the fire management plans that are in place and see what the risks are and what can be done immediately to reduce the risk. I also think at some stage in not too distant future, if the RFS is able to, that they should attend the briefing for councillors, because the Section 44 fire is a state of emergency under the Rural Fires Act, gives the Rural Fire Commissioner total control of everything. Doesn't matter if the fire's on national park, forestry land or private land. They control it. And it doesn't matter what locality it is in. A fire that starts in Katoomba and heads into Lithgow will continue to be dealt with from Katoomba. And once you've got a Section 44, we only got 2 staff, currently only 1 in the Lithgow office, who is qualified as Section 44. Takes a lot of experience, a lot of training. A lot of people don't want to do it because when the shit hits the fan at a Section 44, someone dies, you spend years in legal battles and it takes a toll on your health. And I spoke to Mick Holland today, and in a Section 44, they will bring in staff from outside, because in a campaign fire, 24/7, it can go for months. I think we should have the RFS in to really give the councillors a good understanding of their role, a Section 44 and other fires and what they're doing in the community. I think if they got the time, they may not, because we're going into a bad fire season, but I do support the intent of everything that's been put forward.
Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah, can I
Is there any other speakers before we have the right to reply?
yes, thank you. I did second that motion, is that correct? Is it? No? All right, that's okay, so I haven't spoken.
Still entitled to speak.
I'm just wondering whether Councillor McAndrew would consider adding 3 more dot points to also include the SES, the VRA and the Rapid Response Team. I mean, the fire brigade are the ones that are out on the front line, but we have also got to remember those other people that were there with them, fighting with them, feeding them, looking after them and helping right on the coalface. So I think it would be a lovely gesture on your behalf to include those other groups in our area that also have been out there for days, SES, VRA and the Rapid Response Team. if you'll accept that, I think you'd be doing yourself a well-deserved, it's the right thing to do.
Well, can I deal with that first, and then I'll come back to Councillor Ring's comments. Take on board what's been put by Councillor Statham. I have no problem at adding in number 1 a thank you to all of those organisations. That's all I think we need to do. Part 2 and Part 3 were as a result of what was said from the public gallery tonight. And my intention with Part 2 is simply for councillors to go and have a look. The formal engagement with the RFS was to be undertaken by the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor and the GM. I don't think we need to do any more than that at this stage. If a report, certainly a report can come back from the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and the GM after the meeting with the RFS to do with some of the issues raised by Councillor Ring. But I think to add too much more to was just complicating it. I agree, add those names that you've put forward in 1, but leave 2 and 3 as they are.
Okay, I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? And Councillor Leslie. Councillor Leslie, please sit. You're out of order. Next item of business is notice of motion, Councillor Statham, mobile reception Canimbla.
Happy to second, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Candrew. Yes, Mayor Thompson. Mr Green has done an exceptional work this evening, identifying the roads that are and the areas that are lacking in mobile coverage. It's not a luxury, it's a necessity. It's 2019. These residents down there, and I've visited the area on several occasions, it's difficult to get reception. I know some of the families down there have already spoken about some tragedies and some near tragedies. I feel it would be great if Lithgow City councillors could vote tonight to get an urgent submission done to Vision's Dream Proprietary Limited to get more effective mobile coverage. There are a lot of roads down there, Table Rock, Marsden Swamp, Glengie Road, Gangbanang Road and so forth. I think it's something that we can help them, and if our urgent letter could help, I think we should be all proud of ourselves because we know we've got mobile coverage. If we had that taken away from us, I don't know how we'd feel.
Yeah, very briefly, Mayor. Happy to support and share the frustration and concern of Mr Green. I'm, as you know, being contacted by people even within the Lithgow area with this issue of mobile coverage just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. And I note later on an item dealing with that matter as well, and I have more to say when we get to that.
Yeah, Councillor McKendrew. Any other councillors? Councillor Ring?
Yeah, first, Mayor Thompson, I'd like to foreshadow a motion, and I'll get to that if this one doesn't get up. My understanding from what's been presented is these towers, and what's been discussed tonight, are the towers are going ahead in the Canimbla Valley. My concern is, and I've had correspondence to Council, Mr Muir, we've all had correspondence from residents in the Megalong Valley who are Lithgow residents, and I've had other correspondence the last couple of days of people who are excluded from the Peachtree Road tower in the consultation process. I'm seriously concerned about the lack of consultation. They've extended that process even though the tower has been built, but I'd like to ensure that in all of these processes throughout our LGA that these companies undertake proper consultation. I remember when Telstra was the only provider and I was working at Hartley, they wanted to put a telecommunications tower on Blackmans Creek Road, and they didn't have to really talk to anyone. There were days and times where they could just go on as only provider, bang, national interest, no studies. And I don't believe it's right that any of these operators should fail in their due process. This is not about whether or not it's right or wrong to have a tower. It's about ensuring that due process is followed and all residents that may be impacted on by a development such as this are in fact consulted. And talking with Mr Muir the day, it is not clear cut on when these towers are built, whether or not a DA is submitted. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. The one in Peachtree Road, it was in Blue Mountains, but it impacts on our residents. Mr Muir wrote on behalf of the concerned residents to the Blue Mountain City Council, who advised him that under that circumstance, a DR wasn't required. I find it strange that it can be this sort of grey area, and sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It's a development, either you do or you don't. It should be that simple. So I won't be supporting this as it stands because I think it's already been achieved. We've already written. Mr Green said they're getting the 2 towers by 2020, I believe it is, July 2020. But I do think we need to look at ensuring that our residents are treated fairly by telecommunication providers when they are looking at putting towers in.
Any other speakers?
Right of reply?
Yes.
Right, my right of reply, Mayor Thompson, is only what I've been informed by what I would consider an extremely reliable source. There are certain families down there that already have coverage and they are objecting to the new towers. They already have coverage. So there's a small amount of residents in that area that feel they don't need to have this. But the majority of people that I have spoken to and that Mr Green has spoken to at length to many people, graziers and non-graziers and working class people, they do not have it. It is not a done thing. They're still asking the urgency of this is that it actually closed 3 days ago, and I'm hoping that if Council would allow some urgent time tomorrow to actually reinstate the support if this gets up tonight. But I believe the people that are against it are the people that already have services in that particular area. Now, I won't speak to Mr Green, but if you would like to ask Mr Green to verify that, I'm sure he would be able to verify that.
I heard Mr Green, when he made his submission earlier, I'm quite satisfied that what Mr Green said is factual. That was the right reply. I'm going to put that. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Ring. I notice the motion, Councillor Goodwin. Name of street or laneway.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'm pretty honoured to ask about this. I've been approached by...
just can I get a seconder first? Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I've been approached by the family of Ray Swift to name an unnamed road or laneway in honour of her for all her volunteer work that she's done over the last 45 years plus in the administration, coaching, managing, refereeing, organising and mentoring young people in the local area of basketball. As most people would know, Ray Swift and the Swift family are synonymous with basketball in Lithgow. For over 45 years, Ray's volunteer work has kept children off the streets in some form or another at the basketball stadium. The children she has met have no doubt developed important social skills, athletic ability, friendships, maturity and leadership skills as a direct result of her interactions. Ray was known Australia-wide in the basketball circles. She was awarded the New South Wales Basketball Long Service Award in 2007 and the Bunny Abbott Volunteer of the Year Award in 2014. People that had worked with Ray over 45 years were in the process of nominating Ray for an Order of Australia medal. However, Ray passed away prior to the nomination becoming valid. A laneway that may be appropriate would be an unnamed laneway that runs off Carbine Street between Enfield Avenue and Rifle Parade, Lithgow. This is close to where Ray lived. My recommendation is that the administration investigate an unnamed street or laneway that would be appropriate to name after Ray Swift.
No, not really, Mayor. Darryl said everything that needs to be said. She was an outstanding lady for our community, and the Basketball Association is sadly Mrs. Ray.
The speakers, Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I won't speak against the motion. This motion, however, should have been put forward as the mayoral minute.
Thank you. Councillor Coleman.
we have a number of well-deserved volunteers that have passed on. I only have a question in regards to this. I'm in support of it, but I have a question. How do we accommodate those others that have gone beyond us who have also well-deserved? Is there a registry? You know, how do we accommodate others in regards to this sort of situation?
I would suggest most probably put through a nomination like this one, Councillor Coleman, and see how it is accepted. Councillor McAndrew.
Yes, Mayor, if I could briefly, Councillor Goodwin has dealt with it in some detail. I know the family of Ray Smith personally, and I know for a fact that the lady spent most of her adult life dedicated to basketball from young to old, and I think it is absolutely positively appropriate what is being asked by Councillor Goodwin for council staff to have a look at investigating the naming of a lane or a street in her honour.
Thank you, Councillor McAndrew. Any other speakers? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Notice of motion, Councillor Goodwin, Hassans Walls Lookout
Yes.
Road. Can I get a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Smith.
I'd like to change my recommendation in my notice of motion as well, Mr Mayor. But I'll read something out. After submitting my notice of motion, my attention was drawn to the Hassans Walls Reserve Plan of Management. And after reading this detailed document and having conversations with fellow councillors, I believe it would be pertinent to continue with the plan of management for the reserve and continue with immediate action in regards to 14.3 of the plan of management, visitor use and recreation VR1 and VR2. My amendment would read that the administration immediately implement the following high priority actions from the Hassans Walls plan of management. VR1, retain Hassans Walls Road as a two-way thoroughfare at compacted gravel natural surface, two-wheel drive standard, and continue to cater for a shared use with pedestrians and cyclists at a speed limit of 40 kilometres an hour, which will apply. The shared use and nature of the road and the speed limit will be signposted accordingly. And VR2, it's with the majority of shared use of Hassans Walls Road occurring between the Sheedy's Gully and the entrance of Hassans Walls Lookout turn-off. This section of road will be subject to regular maintenance of the road surface and reduce the risk of accidents, installation of traffic calming devices and road verge barriers as required, signage warning of narrow road sections and the presence of walkers and bike riders, and ongoing monitoring of pedestrians and cyclists' safety risks. That would be my...
You're quite happy with that?
Very happy.
Any other speakers?
I've just got a question. If it's in the plan of management for a 40-kilometre speed limit, is that's not currently the case? It's 50?
I haven't seen a speed limit on there. I haven't noticed. I've seen a couple of 20s, but I haven't seen a 50.
Down the bottom, just as you go up, there's a 50k?
Yeah, it is 50-kilometre speed limited through you, Mr Mayor. Any proposed change to the speed limit would need to be considered and approved by the Roads and Maritime Services. Lithgow Council isn't delegated to control speed limits.
Mayor, I just have a question. It's been a while since I read the Hassans Walls plan. Is there anything in place for a path or a walkway? It's not just bike riders, it's walkers, and they have to walk on the road irrespective of whether it's tar or dirt. Is there anything in place for a cement or a tar walkway so walkers can walk off the road and not on the road? Is it's in place anywhere? Maybe Mr Edge can handle that, can answer that.
Through you, Mayor Thompson, there are no plans, as far as I'm aware, within the plan of management for a walkway, but that, in my opinion, would come at significant cost that council would need to consider. It would involve either widening the road, as it already is at its minimum width, or restricting traffic to one way to make space.
Councillor Ring.
Mayor Thompson, getting the plan of management for Hassans Walls Reserve through and through council has been a big task for the Environment Advisory Committee, of which I'm a member. And I think it's good that Councillor Goodwill is actually, Goodwin, sorry. Councillor Goodwin's actually referencing the document and referring to it. There is provision in there for walking tracks. Mr Edgecombe's right, cement or walking tracks are very expensive. They don't have to be cement or concrete, but they are very expensive. There is provision in there. I can't remember exactly what it is, but there's extensive discussion as well as improving and enhancing facilities. But I think it is very good if we do these documents that we actually use them rather than spend a lot of money, prepare them, put them on a shelf.
Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The original motion indicated that to investigate the possibility of a program where the road would be sealed from the bottom of Hassans Walls to the lookout from the bottom. Is this current motion, reading it here, doesn't seem to have anything to do, doesn't seem to have any relevance to sealing of the road. Is that accurate?
That's the way I understand it, yes.
So it's actually reversed the motion completely?
Yes. Look, we have had, as people would know, we've just had a very serious accident towards the top of Hassans Walls Lookout. And I know that we've had previous times had other serious accidents where traffic has gone over the side. I think that more signage would be appropriate, more than anything else. It is getting more use now than ever it did before. There's and a lot more cyclists are going up there and coming down there at a lot faster than 40 kilometres an hour, I can tell you. So that is a problem in itself. So we certainly need to have more signage on the. But I would agree with Councillor Goodwin that I think sealing the road would make it a speed trap, you know, and that we'd be having more and more people going over the side. Already spoken, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Statham. Councillor Statham.
Yes, Mayor Thompson. I'm wondering if Councillor Goodwin would consider another point on his recommendation that Council contact either through the TALC committee or to the RMS immediately, as soon as possible, to get a 40-kilometre speed limit on that road. And if it's gravel, can there be speed humps put in, or is that not successful?
Is that a question or a...
Well, look, she's still speaking, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Statham's still on her feet and she's putting a question to Mr Edgecombe. Mr Edgecombe.
Thanks, Mayor Thompson. It is possible to put speed humps and traffic control, speed control devices on unsealed roads, yes. In my opinion, it would be more effective to put in traffic calming devices before we consider seal so that the road is safe enough into the future.
Is that part of the resolution? Are you happy to put that part of the resolution? You're happy with that, Councillor Smith? Councillor Coleman.
That was what I was going to ask. I was going to ask if we could send a letter to the RMS, because my understanding is that we can't change it from 50 to 40 unless we do so. Is that the case?
Yes. Yes. Okay. I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Or unanimous? Carried. Notice of motion, Councillor Goodsall, traffic lights on Great Western Highway. If I could have a seconder, please. Councillor Ring.
Yes, this is a very concerning safety aspect for me. Sitting at the top of Bayonet Street, turning right to go to Bathurst, and you've both roads, the opposite road, Flint McLennan, comes straight up. You've got no visibility whatsoever. You cannot see over the verge. And as you're turning right, there's a car flying up Flint McLennan, right into your path. And I think that we need to have, and in the opposite direction as well. You're going up the hill, try and get across in the time, and you've got a car turning across. You're going to Bathurst. I think there should be I'm not sure if they're compliant, the traffic lights with the road safety guidelines, and if possible a turn right arrow, or if you're turning right onto the highway, that the traffic opposite you is stopped.
Ring.
No, I think Councillor Goodsall's covered it well.
Any other speakers? Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I rise with trepidation as to whether we'll be allowed to finish this speech. But the traffic lights at Bayonet Street, Flint McClellan Avenue and the Great Western Highway were installed by the state government. Lithgow Council was not consulted about the matter, and the matter was not referred to the local traffic committee. Even if this recommendation is passed by Lithgow Council, Lithgow Council would not have the authority to implement any recommendations put forward by our staff. It's a state government road. Any such recommendations put forward would either be ignored or re-investigated by the state government. Either way, we would be wasting our money. Let's be careful about motions being put forward by Councillor Goodsall just because she's had a thought bubble.
Point of order. That is offensive. You're out of line. I demand you.
Once again, I will rule on the out of order, and you are out of order.
And I move an amendment.
You're out of order. Please take it.
I apologise.
Please take your seat.
I move an amendment.
Please take your seat and listen to the chair. Take your seat.
I have an amendment to move.
You are not having an amendment. I've just asked you to sit, please.
I did rise with trepidation as to whether I'd be able to...
You are dead right. You're on a very fine line, Councillor Leslie, I tell you.
For what?
I'm just ready to go up. We're going down or with the elevator. The motion says that council staff provide a report as to whether the road safety guidelines are currently being complied with at this intersection. I'm just curious as to where they'll get the information from. Will they have to speak to... My question is, will they have to go to the RMS? Will they have to go to the state government? Or will they have to go through TAC? So how would that information be collected if this motion is actually passed? Where do you go to navigate that sort of information? I think that's the question I'd like to have answered.
John?
Yep, through you, Mayor Thompson. There would have been extensive studies conducted by the RMS before this was installed. Our first port of call to save any undue work would be to contact the RMS and get some information advising us of the site distance and considerations and traffic analysis that was done at the time. We would then we would raise Councillor Goodsall's points of concern in writing and ask them to comment on whether those proposals could be initiated with an improvement to safety in that area.
A question for Mr Edgecombe that I can see where Councillor Goodsall's going. I think she basically wants the same set of lights that Dunn's Corner has. That when you come out of the main street, you get the green arrow to turn right, and then the oncoming traffic coming up from Tweed Road, they go first, then you get a right turn. That's all we're asking for. We're not asking for the world. If we've got to, we don't need any official. If we just, even if we can ask our state member to say, right, Mr Toole, can you have a look at this? That's all we're asking. We're not asking the world. And we don't have to have a massive debate over this. This is a safety issue for our whole community. It's not hard to put an arrow in for the same set of lights as Dunn Corner. A bit of common sense will come into play here without a massive debate over something the whole community is going to benefit out of.
So, any other speakers? I shall put that then. Those in favour of the recommendation? Those against? Councillor Leslie. Notice of motion, Councillor Goodsall. Parking at Wallarowang Public School, seconded Councillor Smith. With an amendment. What is the amendment?
I've had another thought. The issue of safe parking, car parking for students and families at Wallarowang has been a long ongoing concern. Recently, Council has installed concrete blocks to limit access to an unsafe vehicular area. Possibly tonight we will be further restricting parking along Barton Avenue as per the talc minutes in tonight's agenda. Council staff have drafted concept plans for a permanent solution inside Lake Wallace. The DOE, Department of Education and RMS have yet to communicate any substantial support. This issue has gone on for many, many years. Yeah, it needs to be resolved, and we need the relevant parties to step up. We need the department to step up. We need RMS to step up. Also, I'd just like to note that Wallerawang Public School has raised concerns in regard to the access to the Wallerawang Indoor Stadium, and that anyone who uses the stadium has to access through department land. So on the weekends, to get to the basketball stadium, netball stadium, the department has to open their land. Now, I just want to, Mr Edgecombe, to comment on the current agreement that Council, Wallerawang Public School and...
The Netball Association.
Yeah, Wallerawang Indoor Stadium. Are you all able to read that out, Jonathan?
I can't read it out because it's not in front of me and it's extensive. But the long and the short of it is that there is a standing right of way over the bus zone itself that allows council access, and there is also an agreement over the land for a period of 20 years allowing council unrestricted access into the Department of Education car park outside of regular school hours for the purposes of accessing the Wallerawang Stadium. That agreement was put in place as part of the construction of the facility in consultation with the department at the time.
So, in summing up, I'd like Council to contact the Honourable Paul Toole in his capacity as Minister for Regional Transport and Roads to request his assistance in lobbying financial support of both the Department of Education and the Roads and Maritime Services for the construction. And people will argue about this, and I understand that there's going to be a debate, that the car park be situated in Lake Wallace.
Councillor Smith.
I agree with Councillor Goodson, but I'd like to add a point too, after I speak about it, is that I'd like to see all the councillors, and I've asked this, and I've spoke to other councillors, and they're right behind me here, that we have an on-site meeting with all the councillors and senior management. This is a bad area. Wang School is renowned for fog. It's a bad area down there where this parking is. I agree with Councillor Goodsell that on that parking on the left-hand side in the no standing zone, thank God they've extended that for the Tower Committee. It's a great decision, because I fear to God that some kid's going to get killed down there. The way parents pull up there with their cars over the white line, getting out of the cars with the kids onto the road. It's a very popular road. We need to do something, and we need to do it sooner than later. I just can't stress enough that all the councillors need to take the time out, not just Wayne School. We have dramas in our whole community with parking, and we can't change the world. But this is a step forward in the right direction. We need to take the time. This has come up on numerous occasions. We need to get out there and have a look and see the dramas that Wayne School has. We have the luxury of Lake Wallace there. It's great. But I hope Energy Australia says there is a plot of land you can have and donates it. That would be great. It'd be great for the community and great for the council at no cost. But we need to get out there. So I'd like to put in a point too, if Councillor Goodsell's happy.
You happy to accept that point too?
That we organise an on-site meeting sooner than later with our senior management and all our councillors. And I'd like to see them all make the effort to come. Thank you.
Mayor Thompson, Knight, aye.
Yep. Yeah, look, I agree with the thrust of it, and in fact it's more important now with the on-site meeting, because I think it's important that we do get out there and have a look, because the issues raised by Councillor Goodsell as well regarding the link between the basketball stadium and the school needs to be looked at as well. And I think the best way of doing that is to go out there and have a look at the whole area, the whole site. And I take on board that it's asked for a new car park within Lake Wallace, but we don't own the land. Energy Australia do. And we simply just lease, and I would have thought that they'd have something to say in relation to that. And I don't think we should restrict ourselves just to looking at, if there's to be parking, which I agree with, just looking at somewhere on the Lake Wallace lease. There may be other areas in and around the school or near the school or between council land and the like. I understand, and that's one of the reasons I'm keen to have a look myself. I understand in talking to Councillor Smith, who lives out there and knows the area better than I, that there could be areas behind the school for parking. I don't know. I'd like to have the opportunity to have a look. And of course, if that's the case, and that takes the children and their parents away from that main thoroughfare, which is a busy road now. I agree with Councillor Smith. So I think, I suppose the other point I'd probably make, whether the on-site inspection and look should be one, and the second point should be in relation to contacting the Honourable Paul Till, because I think we really do need to go and have a look at it. And like I said, but I support the what's being proposed. Well, I think we need to have a look and then look at that second part of that motion. Of course, there may be others that we need to contact in relation to it.
Mayor Thompson, yes, this was something that I was very passionate about when I got onto council. I had Nicole Case and Carol McSorley and many other people from Wallerawang that worked there as workers or parents or grandparents. And at one stage we thought Duncan Gay had allowed enough money to put an overhead bridge there, which was my first request, and all was going smoothly, and then they realised there were cranes that used that road, so it was going to be unsuccessful. However, there is an area at the rear of the left-hand side of the community basketball stadium, which I've gone and inspected on 3 occasions. It's not a large area of land, but it certainly would be an area of land that could be extended. It's on the same side as the school. We're very fortunate enough now we've got the lollipop men. They're getting aged, they're getting old. It's a lot of responsibility. I think if we can get some car parking to the rear of the left-hand side of the school would be at not a great cost, and I'm sure that if Councillor Toole, Minister Toole was contacted, even though it's not his portfolio, I do believe that he would contact the Minister for Education and get him up here or get her up here and have a look. Wallerawang School's gone from 210 to about 340. I think maybe the last count. It's a lot of children, a lot of parents, carers and grandchildren, and I go across that road like Joe would, Councillor Smith would, regularly, twice a day, 4 times a day, and we're very, very fortunate to this stage that nobody's been killed. It's not designated as a black spot.
Councillor Ring.
Mayor Thompson, could I just clarify something for you to Mr Muir? My understanding previously we were advised that the lease that we have with Energy Australia, if the power station ceases operating, which it has, they could terminate our lease within 1 week. Is that correct?
Yeah. As far as I know.
Or is it a month?
Mr Muir.
I'm not sure if it's a week or a month, but it's very short
Okay,
notice.
so it's a very short period.
It's a month.
I did discuss this with Councillor Goodsall. She nagged me and hassled me to get out and have a look at it. She didn't get out there the first day. And the fact that it's taken so long to resolve the immediate problem amazes me. I'm glad that it didn't take so long. I did see plans that were provided by administration drafts. My response was, we don't own the land. Some star pickets and whatever could solve the problem, the immediate problem. It's done. It is a longer term problem we need to resolve. And if I was the minister and I was looking at it, and we only asked to build it on Lake Wallace, do your homework. Oh, well, you don't own it. Why would we waste our money? So that's a threat. I think that it should be a very generic letter of request going to them that they're funding it. This is a planning failure on the Department of Education's fault. Council's picked it up and run with it, particularly for Councillor Goodsall, but we need their money to ensure this happens. It might mean sacrificing some land, but it is for our community. So I do fully support it. I'm just concerned about specifying in any letter within Lake Wallace.
I agree.
Mayor Thompson?
Councillor Coleman.
I have real concerns in regards to Energy Australia and what Councillor Ring has just said. So I think that the motion should be the other way round, that we have an on-site meeting first, we have a look at what actually is needed and then move forward with contacting the relevant authorities. My concern is if this has been going on since 2014, that's my biggest worry, that the toing and throwing for the past couple of years is the fact that Energy Australia owns the land. So I think we need to have an on-site meeting first.
Okay, Councillor Goodsall, right to reply.
Look, I don't mind how it's solved. It just needs to be solved. Can I ask through you, Mayor Thompson, to Jonathan, Mr Edgecombe, why was the consent plans drawn up to be in the dam? Why were the draft consent plans
Are you talking about the draft plans that we drew up in terms
Yes.
of it was simply ease of construction. That is, in my opinion, the cheapest option with no requirement for earthworks or minimal requirement for earthworks. Plus, that is a very, very busy road, and any additional requirement for driveways off of Barton Avenue would probably require a lengthy consultation and approval process. Having a car park within Lake Wallace, there's already a functioning existing access through the dam itself that we wouldn't need to get approved.
Is there any reason why we can't ask for a donation of a piece of land from Energy Australia? Is there any reason why we can't, Mr. General Manager? We've got a motion at the moment of Councillor Goodsall, and also to go out for councillors to go out and have a look at, irrespective of which way it goes. Councillors will have to go out and have a look at it, irrespective, and come up with and this will have to come back to council again. So I shall put it the way that it is. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Councillor Goodsall, Paediatric Services.
Happy to second this, Mayor Thompson.
Councillor Ring. Councillor Goodsall.
Okay, I'm very passionate about this one. In Lithgow LGA, at the moment, we have two main paediatric specialists who service our community. Obviously, they have to prioritise their appointments, so as do other specialists. Babies, children and our youth with medical conditions have reasonable access and waiting times to see a paediatric specialist locally. On the flip side of that, if you've got an individual with a complex behavioural issues, they can wait up to 12 months for an appointment locally. As quoted by visiting paediatrician Dr. Aman Barbajan, our local government area has very complex medical, behavioural, psychological and developmental problems. He refers to these cases as 100% complex. The ability to take on new clients for him is restricted, as he sees most of his patients up until the age of 18. Disorders such as ADHD, ODD and CD, left unaddressed, could have significant negative impacts on any individual. The impacts can include, but are not limited to, social isolation, limited engagement in learning, developmental issues and adverse effects in the home and broader community. Domestic violence has a significant effect on the young person's life, in particular their mental health, and in some cases it takes up to 7 generations to break that cycle. I've got one more little bit. I'll leave that out for now. Families with stable resources and suitable resources will travel to other areas for a sooner appointment. Families with no such resources, they just wait. And I just want to read out this last page that I do have. Recently we have raised the profile of mental health significant with resilience programs, shelters for the homeless, Headspace, Walk and Talk, soup kitchens. Mental health starts at a very young age, and I'd like to see some additional paediatric support in our community for our families.
Mayor Thompson, I can testify to how much time Councillor Goodsall's actually put into this. She's used me on a sounding board on a number of occasions. It's a very important issue. We're going to be talking about strategic plans for our community a little bit further on in the meeting. And when we had those meetings, we talked about taking everyone with us. And when we transition our economy, we've got to take everyone. There are people who are on welfare dependency who have been in families with welfare for more than one generation. Those people are part of our community, they need help, and it's up to us to ensure that they get it. Children under 12 deserve a good start in life. That's what we're talking, children under 12. We've now got Headspace, which can help children or young people from 12 to 25. but by 12 they can be very damaged goods. We need to ensure that all children in our community get the same opportunity for health and education, and all have the same opportunity to move forward in their lives. It is critical. And that is something that we have to do with transitioning Lithgow. And that was part of my vision for Lithgow in 2042, is we move the whole community forward. Not one sector here, we take everyone with us. We make our community great, to use a Trumpism. Work to him. But look, I think we do need to have this done. We need to get support for these children and improve health services in our community.
Thanks, Councillor Ring. Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Goodsell is right in that the level of support for our health services in the LGA is appalling. She's right on that. And I take Councillor Goodsell at her word on paediatric services, but consider the other issues. Headspace, run as an adjunct from services at Bathurst, cancer screenings removed from Lithgow, the appalling lack of support for our aged care services in Lithgow, and drug rehabilitation in Lithgow is negligible. The letter in the local papers from the Chair and the CEO of the Lithgow Aged Care highlights the problems caused by the recent accreditation audit on Lithgow Aged Care. The ban on new residents for 6 months and the requirement to employ a clinical advisor and an administrator will severely strain the ability to keep providing the excellent services that Lithgow Aged Care have provided up till now. Councillor Goodsell is right. We are being poorly served by our local representatives. Personally, I think it's a waste of time wanting to engage with these health ministers, but if the council decides otherwise, then I would expect these other matters to also be included in the agenda of that meeting and reported back to council.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Any other speakers? Okay, I shall put that then. Those in favour?
For Councillor Good.
Now I shall put it. Those in favour? Against? Councillor Leslie. Okay, we move to... no, we're not. Next one over. We've done that. Delegations to Deputy Mayor. Okay. Okay, delegations to Deputy Mayor.
Happy to move.
Can move Councillor Ring.
Happy to second.
Second, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Ring.
No, Mayor Thompson, I think it's straightforward.
Councillor Coleman. I shall put that then. Any speakers first? No? Okay, I shall put that. Those in favour? Against? Carry. Nine 1.3 proposed strategic direction and strategies.
Happy to move, Mayor Thompson.
Happy to second, Mayor Thompson.
Move Councillor Ring, seconded Councillor Coleman. Statham, I'm sorry. Councillor Ring.
Mayor Thompson, I think it's a good report. The strategy meetings have given us some direction. It's really critical. And I believe that we are now getting our heads around where we need to move our community. And I fully support the recommendation and what has been put up here. Thank you.
Councillor Statham.
I condone with Councillor Ring. I think it's an excellent report, and it's stated very clearly what our visions are and the transitioning and into our next phase of strategic planning.
Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I equally support the report. It's good to see we're using industrial in what we're trying to achieve, and I also note the second point, integrating with and leveraging on the growth in Western Sydney, and I take this opportunity to congratulate the GM in convincing us to join with West Rock, because in fact, in my view, it was one of the best strategic decisions we've taken as a council for some time, and that's paying dividends, and it'll continue to pay dividends as we link and look at jobs and opportunities in a growing Western Sydney.
Thanks, Councillor McAndrew. Any other speakers? Councillor Goodsall.
I've just got a question in the recommendation, dot point 2, the General Manager to extend an invitation to members of the Lithgow LGA. How are those, what will be the selection criteria for those people? How will they be selected or invited to be part of that work?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, councillors, we would, as we have before, extend invitations by way of public notice in the paper to those persons that have got business interests, business expertise to form the working party. It is open to councillors as well. We would develop a terms of reference for them. We'd set a time frame as we have with the other working parties and report back to council on the engagement strategy. The engagement strategy should not just be council to council or council to Wesrock. The engagement strategy should include, for instance, real estate agents to real estate agents, businesses to businesses. In Western Sydney, particularly in Lithgow, there's a huge business park that's been developed where a lot of firms are relocating to take advantage of Western Sydney and the growth there. So we'd be trying to identify through this working party what those businesses are, whether there's similar businesses here, and we'd be looking at all sorts of relationships. The Aerotropolis relationship, we already know that there are 4 councils in the Wesrock group that are looking to leverage off the Aerotropolis. That's Badgerys Creek. We've had staff down at these centres, and we would be trying to piggyback on whatever those councils are trying to do in that area. So engagement to a whole range of businesses and public entities, but the strategy to be developed would be done within the working party, back to council, as we did with the tourism working parties, which were successful, and as we did with the decline in retail strategy.
Those in favour? Against? Carried. Uh, 9.1.4 telecommunications.
Happy to
Mayor
move,
Thompson,
Mayor.
like to move it with amendment.
Councillor
Thompson.
Councillor Smith and seconded Councillor McAndrew, was it? Sorry.
Look, Mayor, I support what's being the recommendation in its 3 points. I said earlier when we were discussing some of the issues in relation to Councillor Stathan's notice of motion, I'm more and more being approached from residents within our Lithgow and local government area regarding the continuing poor communications in relation to mobile phones, and it's becoming pretty well on a daily basis now. And I know there's been a number of community members that have done a great deal of investigation in relation to some of the problems, and I note in the commentary on page 24 regarding the issue about the towers. The 3 mobile towers operated by one provider in the Lithgow LGO are not working and subject to maintenance with the effect that the remaining tower was congested. My understanding is that's not improved, but it's only one of the issues. So I take from the report, Mayor, if I can, the recommendation in relation to page 25, the opportunity for that residents to come forward and give their view. That will be in relation to invite and aggregate comments from affected Lithgow residents who experience typical mobile phone coverage. How will we go about doing that? That be by way of a letter, or by how will we do that?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. What we're talking about is aggregating demand. So in the first instance, we would advertise the fact that Lithgow Council is seeking advice from those residents that are experiencing difficulty. We would then create a web page where they could easily access, and they would send in details of their current provider, the difficulties they've had, and whether or not they're involved in any contract or, the duration of their contract. Once we've got the list of all of those people that are willing to aggregate the demand, that is, get council to act on their behalf to negotiate an agreement with a wholesale provider. We would then go to the wholesale providers, and there might be more than just Telstra, Optus and Vodafone. Generally there's other wholesale licensees that are around, and we would market an aggregated demand. But hopefully it won't get to that stage. Hopefully the word will get out that we're aggregating the demand, and they'll see Lithgow as a place to come and fix. This is not something new, that's something we've done before. Yeah.
Mayor Thompson, I'd like to add an additional item to the recommendation, if I may. Item 4, that the General Manager prepare terms of reference for a working party to address the issue of mobile coverage within the LGA. I think it's very important. We've got a number of working parties that have been going. This is a finite project. I think it's very good that we actually engage and get the community involved in this. It's good to aggregate demand, but it's also good to have representatives from Kapiti Valley and other areas to put up their concerns and their issues. I think it would be a good way to go.
You're happy to...
I haven't got a problem accepting that fourth point as long as it doesn't hold up 1, 2 and 3, because I know that there's residents already want to talk to someone about the problems that they've experienced and continuing to experience, and some of those residents have done a lot of work drilling down to what the problems are.
Well, could we put it that way that point 4, 1, 2 and 3 to be done immediately, and point 4 as a working party to explore other... Are you happy with that, Councillor Ring?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Any other speakers? Councillor Coleman?
I think working parties are really important. We actually get a lot out of our residents when we bring them together. We learned a lot, so I think that is really important, and I congratulate Councillor Ring for bringing that forward.
Any other speakers? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Unanimous. Uh, 9.1.5, committee delegates.
Mayor, I'm happy to move. I'm happy to move the committees as recommended, but equally I want to put a second point that I know some time ago the General Manager looked at trying to consolidate some of the committees and cut the numbers. I see that we're starting to get right up there again in relation to numbers, so in supporting the proposal tonight, the committees as written and those that are on it, and I note that there's 2 new committees that have to have people nominated, Women's Advisory and Men's Health Advisory. But I also like as a second point that the GM once again look at trying to consolidate some of those committees.
Any other speakers on committees? Councillor Statham.
Yes, Ms Thompson, I do agree with Councillor Coleman, Councillor McAndrew and Councillor Ring, Councillor Smith, sorry, that there are too many committee meetings here now. We had this many a few years ago. We tried to consolidate without not having everybody. Everybody's committee is important, but I do believe there may be a few committees here that could go into committees that would be quite happy together.
Thank you, Councillor Statham.
Well together.
Councillor Ring.
Mayor Thompson, the need for committees varies year in, year out, and it also reflects the community and what concerns the community. I have no problem with the General Manager looking at reviewing these. Possibly we should be looking at reviewing some of the external committees, and we're involved in those. But for our own committees, they should have a finite life. If they're not actually providing a result or a benefit, get rid of it. They're not talk fests. I was a professional public servant. I hate committee meetings. If they don't achieve anything, get rid of the committee, or go back and rework the terms of reference. But I would like to nominate myself for the Men's Health Committee and Councillor Coleman for the Females or the Women's Health Advisory Committee.
Happy to second that.
Okay. No other speakers?
Mayor, just as right a reply based on that points raised by Councillor Ring, I would expect that the GM in consolidating committees would look at those that have not been used or aren't being used. I don't know enough about them. I only know the ones I sit on, so I don't know about others that may not have been used or not being used. So I expect the consolidation, for want of a better word, will be looking at those things as well.
Just before I put that particular, Mr. Muir's got something to put.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just by I suppose, the foibles of the way the terms of reference are written for two committees, the Economic Development Committee and the Heritage Committee, both of those committees indicate that the chair and deputy chair should be selected when council nominates its committees, as in tonight. So it would be necessary. By convention with the Economic Development Committee, of course, it consists of all councillors. Then one would think the mayor and deputy mayor would become chair and deputy chair. And the Heritage Committee, if those councillors are selected this evening, would be, of course, between Councillor Ring and Councillor Leslie as to who would be chair and deputy chair.
Mayor, if we're going to ask the General Manager to review these committees, shouldn't we defer this vote until he does review it?
No.
Why?
We can
still work it that way?
We'll still work it until such times. Yeah.
So could I just get clarification off Mr Muir? I think he's got the committees wrong. It's actually the Environment Advisory Committee that requires the chair's position to be voted on. Heritage Committee has Councillor Leslie as chair and the deputy is Kyle Hunter.
Is who? Apparently that's not right. He checked today, so I'll just give Mr Muir the right again.
You may recall recently the Environmental Advisory Committee examined the terms of reference in relation to chair and deputy chair, and that will happen at the first meeting of the environmental. That's right.
Apologies.
Yeah, Economic Development Committee, we actually resolved when we redid that committee recently, and those terms of reference held that the chair and deputy chair be declared tonight, if you like, as for the Heritage Committee, the same.
Can I ask a question, please, Mayor? I'm a bit confused then. If the Heritage Committee is decided tonight, then why is the Environment Committee decided within the committee? Shouldn't it be consistent with each other? Shouldn't they both either be decided tonight or within the committee itself? Like, I'm a bit confused.
Mr Muir.
It would be good. The other option open to council would be to change the terms of reference of the Heritage Committee, that the chair and deputy chair be elected at the first meeting after tonight. That's the
Wouldn't
other
that be more a consistent approach with the Environment Committee? I'm just putting that out there. I think that it should be, it's either one or the other. I think it should be done at the committee meeting with those who are on the committee. So can I put an amendment up that is done at the committee meeting, the first committee meeting, that the Heritage Committee decides whether or not their chair and their deputy chair? I think that would be best.
And put that up if I can get a second it.
Happy to second it.
Seconded, Councillor Ring.
Mayor Thompson, could I just seek clarification? If we do the review, can we also look at the terms of references for all the committees to ensure that they are consistent? I've looked at other councils. They have a standard terms of reference and then what the committee does. I mean, some of the terms of reference for some of our committees go way back. I think we should consolidate and just have one set standard terms of reference and then what the aim of each committee is.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, if council's are happy, we will not only review the terms of reference but also look at these committees as far as objectives are concerned and sunset clauses so that they're objective focused.
Everybody happy? Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. One of the difficulties about the committees is getting the minutes confirmed. Some councils, some committees have it has to be endorsed by 3 councillors, some by 3 members of the committee, others by different things. I'm not putting this as a motion, but I would recommend in any review by the General Manager that it just be referred to, that the minutes of every meeting just be referred to the chairman of that meeting to be put forward. They're not, that doesn't make them compulsory because they eventually have to be endorsed by the council anyway. But at least the chairman, who he or she is the person who is actually probably concentrating the most at the meetings and is probably the person who's most able to actually get the motions and procedures right, as opposed to having a number of people who may well come up with different views. And I just think it's an efficient way to do it.
Agreed. Anybody got anything against it? No. Okay, I shall put that then. No.
The amendment, Councillor Coleman and Steve Green.
Yep. I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against?
Trying to understand what the amendment is. So
Well, the amendment is that we select the chair and the deputy chair from the committees. That's the way I understand it. Is that right?
Can't that simply be an extra point?
Well, it can be an extra point.
Well, I need to know whether it's an extra point or an amendment. So,
Yeah, Mr Mayor, if I could just clarify, our understanding is that it's the recommendation that Council's got up there regarding confirm, reconfirm for the membership of the committees, plus an additional point that the Heritage Committee be decided at the first meeting of the Heritage Committee, consistent with the other committees themselves. Yeah.
And regarding the minutes, was that not put up, Councillor Leslie, as well? I think that should be put up as well.
That's part of the review.
Part of the review?
We think that's a good idea and we'll certainly follow up on the review.
Okay.
Yeah.
the motion is as written with the 3 points. Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay, shall I put it now then? Those in favour? Unanimous. Pass. Uh, 9.1.6 Code of Meeting Practice Webcasting.
Mayor, happy to move with the change.
Yeah, I will either change, but I'm happy to second it.
Well, it'll relate to recommendation 1, and I'll read it out so it's clear. The recommendation at the moment: determine whether to amend clause 5.19 of the Code of Meeting Practice to state 5.19. 5.19, all meetings of the Council and committees of the Council will be webcast on the Council's website. Audio-visual recordings of meetings will be uploaded on the Council's website within 24 hours of the meeting, after the Mayor and GM have signed off on changes. The reason I put that forward, and as I understand the intent of this recommendation from staff, is to give the GM and the Mayor opportunity to make sure there's been nothing of a defamatory or illegal nature has arisen as a result of the webcast. And I note there's a later report in the paper dealing specifically with the problems associated with defamation. So that's what I'd like to move, Mayor, and 1 and 2, number 2 remains the same.
Any discussion?
Yeah, Mayor.
Councillor Ring.
I'm not sure I really agree. I liked the fact that we are live webcasting. I appreciate the concerns with defamation. At the beginning of the council meeting, we make it clear that this is being broadcast, that people should take notice of that and be aware of the risk of defamation. My concern is if there is delays or amendments to it, then we're going to be criticised for doctoring videos. There have been claims that in the past when we had recordings, not in the current council, under the prior council, accusations that management and the administration played around with the tapes to get or delete information. That concerns me. So as it stands, I really can't support it.
I don't support it either. I think if we're live, we're live. And it does look like we're trying to hide something, and transparency is the key.
I also, too, object to it. I think it should stay as it is. It should be a reflection of what and how the meeting is occurring. We're all adults here. We can all mind our tongue.
Mayor Thompson, I agree totally with the 2 previous speakers, or the 3 previous speakers. I think it has to be one or the other, and it's 2019, so I do believe that live streaming is very acceptable. And in the event that it is recorded, it was suggested in court that the previous council had a councillor who insisted on several times that recording had been changed. It was proven that it hadn't been changed, but it also, I think, questioned the integrity of the GM and the councillors involved. So I think you know, we're having a pretty good run here, and I think people are enjoying watching it live streamed. I think we're all sensible enough to try and contain anything we're going to say, and in the event that something is completely defamatory, that may be cut out or stopped at the time. But I think, you know, at the moment it's transparent, and we need to have a transparent council. I don't think it's what the General Manager wants to hear. But
Councillor Leslie?
Just for clarification then, if we want to have live streaming to go through as is without being changed or considered or dealt with afterwards, we just simply vote against this recommendation. Is that it?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the recommendation is simply asking you to determine what you want to do. There's no recommendation from the administration one way or the other, but I do have some comment, if I'm able to, after Councillor Leslie's made comment.
Well, I'd like to have the live streaming as is. If necessary, I'll move a amendment or a motion so that the live streaming be as is without modification or change by administration.
Mayor, I'm happy to withdraw my original motion based on those comments. It was simply an attempt to make sure that we protect ourselves, protect our staff, protect people in the public gallery. But I see there's some concerns that will take the transparency away. That was never that intent. It was simply an opportunity for yourself and the GM to check to make sure no one's got themselves into trouble. But I'm happy to withdraw the motion.
I'll just let the General Manager make a comment anyway.
Before you do, Mick, I just need a point of order. Do we need to second Councillor Leslie's motion? Because no one seconded that. I just need to ask that question.
Yeah, good point.
Yes.
Councillor Goodsall has seconded. Mr General Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Unfortunately, the councillors have taken this as targeting councillors and what they want to say and transparency. That's not the genesis of this. I came back from leave recently, and while I was away on leave, there was a video representation of two members of the public standing up, attacking the council for the decision in relation to Gumnut House. And these two members of the public, who were actually employees of the business there at the moment, in my view, said quite defamatory things about the business, which I thought that the business would have an action against either them or the council. This business was in the courts at the moment, and there was argument on this floor that council allowed to occur that basically said that they were insolvent, that they had trouble elsewhere, and that the employees hadn't received their due entitlements. Now, if that business had suffered as a result of that comment, they would have either gone after the employees, or in my view, they would have gone after the council, because the council's the one with the money. As it turns out, that firm has been completely exonerated. It's paid all its bills, it's no longer in the courts, and there's no problems with the employees. That's the reason why the administration thought we should perhaps protect the council and the ratepayers of this community from actions stemming from that. It wasn't from anything the councillors had said. But as a GM, I'm quite happy that you've all been warned, and it's a matter of record.
Okay, I shall. Any other speakers? No. I shall put Councillor Leslie's motion then. Those in favour? Against? Councillor Goodwin.
Mayor Thompson, I'd like to move to the next item, please.
9.2 Economic Development and Environmental Report says Water Resource Management Facility, Geordie Street, Lithgow.
This is a great initiative of council, moving us into the 21st century.
Did I get a seconder there? I'm sorry, Councillor Goodsall. Sorry, Councillor Ring.
Recently, when we put out the media release about people scavenging at tips, which is dangerous, there was a lot of commentary on Facebook. This facility answers a lot of those questions. We'll be moving towards reducing our waste that goes into the grounds, and we will be moving towards a more modern facility. In dealing with my mother's deceased estate, we had to take a box trailer load of rubbish to the tip down at Shell Harbour. Nothing like what we've got up here. No holes in the ground, and it was about $140 for the load. So yeah, when people complain about our rates and what it costs, they should really go down to Sydney and see what it costs to get rid of a load of rubbish. It is very expensive. I've been waiting for this to come to council. I think it's brilliant. I think it's a great move, and it bodes well for us in the future.
Councillor Goodsall.
I fully support it too. I think it's a good news story for our community.
Any other speakers? Councillor Leslie.
Just a question, Mr Mayor. Who is actually going to run this facility?
Lithgow Council. Council.
Any other speakers?
Just a question, Mayor. Based on the comments by Councillor Ring, I certainly support the proposal, and I've gone through the document. Have I missed something? There's no charges to our ratepayers in relation to it? Okay, I just heard the comparison about the charges down Shellhaven, did you say? Shell Harbour. No, that's fine. On that basis, I certainly support it. Had it been a charge, I would have had a different view.
Any other speakers? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Carried? Unanimous?
I'll move the next item, 9.22.
And I'm happy to second, please.
Mayor Thompson.
Licence to Lithgow Croquet Club. Councillor Statham.
I think this is very exciting. This croquet club has a wonderful lot of members now. It's grown, it's growing, and a lot of people are absolutely loving their new sport. I think it endorses Lithgow Council's confidence in the croquet club. I think it's very simple. It's a good report, and I hope this gets up tonight.
I'm very pleased that we were able to round it off to $400 as suggested at one of the last meetings. The Croquet Club were really passionate about ensuring that it wasn't going to cost them more than they need to, so I congratulate the council on bringing this forward.
Any other speakers on the Croquet Club? Councillor Leslie.
Just, I was wondering if I could get an answer to the question that's been asked a number of times here as to the progress in extending that Croquet Club to include extra land.
Mr Mayor, I'm not aware of that. We're currently dealing with their project to improve the irrigation and surface of the Croquet Club, but they haven't raised that recently not with my section anyway.
Sorry, I have raised in the past about the possibility of extending the Croquet Club into that area to the east, closer to the Girl Guides Hall. It seemed to, at the time, be given some sort of approval, but I appreciate that no formal motion has been moved to that effect. I was just, but if no formal motion has been moved, then I will do so.
Look, I go down there quite regularly, and it has been surveyed. I've seen some surveyor pegs pegged out down there at the moment. So,
Mr Mayor, can we take the question on notice? We are meeting with members of the Croquet Club, I think this Thursday. So with our discussions regarding their project at the moment, we'll find out and research the background for that and report to all councillors via email if you're happy with that.
Yeah, Mayor Thompson, that's also been brought up at the Sports Advisory Council, and I know that for a fact, and the ladies have asked, not so much in a formal way, but have said, you know, maybe down in the future there'd be an endeavour for them to expand their Croquet Club. And if you could chase that up General Manager, that'd be great.
So the recommendation's there. Any other speakers before I put it? Okay, I shall put that. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Policy, leasing and licence policy.
Move, Mayor Thompson.
Moved Councillor Ring.
Happy to second.
Councillor Coleman. Councillor Ring.
I think it's a very good policy. It's clear. It outlines the different categories. We haven't had a policy like this before, I believe. I think it will help us in managing our assets well into the future. Thank you.
My understanding it'll be going on public expedition for 28 days. I'll be interested to see if there's any comments coming back.
Any other comment? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Carried unanimous. Proposed storage area cover, Board Street, Lithgow.
Happy to move.
Moved, seconded, Councillor Goodsall. Councillor Smith.
Reading this, it's obviously in our workshop yard down in Moore Street. No, I think it's a no-brainer. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Goodsall, no comment. Any comment? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Carried unanimous. That was a division, but it was carried unanimous. Hartley Cemetery.
Happy to move.
Move Councillor Coleman, seconded Councillor Ring. Councillor Coleman.
I'll reserve my right. Don't need
Councillor
to speak.
Ring.
Look, it's a straightforward, simple construction. It's not that long ago that we approved another mausoleum down there. Yeah, no brainer. I'd like to move the next one. Thank you, Mayor Thompson, with an amendment.
Happy to second after I hear the amendment or the change.
Basically, I'm requesting, Mayor Thompson, a third point. I've read the document. I did find there were 2 points that appeared to contradict each other, and I've discussed that with Mr Muir. And I am proposing, in order to ensure consistency throughout the document, that the third point added is that Council amends section 2.3.3 of the policy to read: if a development application is to be notified during the periods where Council is closed over Christmas and New Year holiday period, then the days between 20th December and 10th of January inclusive will not be included in the notification period. It just ensures consistency between 2.23 and 2.3.3.
Happy as a seconder to accept that.
Yep.
I support it. I just want to ask some questions in relation to page 45, because I know this has come up a number of times, and I go down to the 6th point. Members of the community who are affected by proposed major development should be consulted by the proponent before an application for planning approval is made. Who determines, or how, who determines who's affected? How is that? You know, in normal development applications, there's been questions before: who should be notified? How far should the notification go? Who should it cover? Who's affected? Who's not? It's once again, do we have any idea of what the criteria is in relation to who should be consulted?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The criteria in terms of, I suppose, extent of notification do come from our current policy, which do then transfer into this proposed community participation plan. And at the end of the day, if this community participation plan is adopted, the council policy, the current council policy can then be rescinded because this replaces it. There is still built into it some level of judgment in that if the assessing officer thinks that a proposal should be notified further afield than what it says in the policy, and you'll see for certain sorts of notification it talks about properties, talks about lots and where they are, then it still exists that it can be notified further afield than what's actually in the policy, which will become the community participation plan.
I do recall the past something about 500 metres around the proposal. Is that correct?
No, my recollection is that may have been in the past, but the current version of the policy, which then transfers to the community participation plan. If you can bear with me for a moment.
Well, look, I'm happy for the answer to come back if you haven't got it, but
just bear with me. Primarily, if you look at if you wanted to peruse the draft community participation plan at your leisure, page 13, 2.3 notification, you'll see a plan, and that plan shows various lots, if you like, in the relation to where the development is, and that forms the basis for the notification.
And that's straight out of our current
Yes.
development application process.
Straight out of the current council policy. That's
okay.
correct.
All right. Thank you.
Councillor McAndrew was talking about 500 metres. How about 1 millimetre? I'd recommend that this document should be really read carefully by the public. About 5 years ago, before I was on council, Lithgow Council developed a sewage treatment plant which is 1 millimetre from my side boundary. No notification was given to me. The only notification was, and I have read it on the council's documents, was a letterbox drop would be considered sufficient. But this particular sewage treatment plant, the roof is such that it drains back onto my property. It's had sewage coming into my property from a blockage coming from Tree View. It's just terrible, and yet as an owner, I've neither my mother, who was alive at the time, or myself after I moved there, were given any notification at all. I would really recommend that the public just be aware of just how devastating and how destructive council's policies in some matters can be.
I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Councillor Leslie against. Okay, demolition and deconstruction of Wallerawang Power Station.
Move the motion, Mayor Thompson.
Moved Councillor Ring. Seconded Councillor Goodsall. Councillor Ring.
Demolition of the power station for many is a very emotive issue. However, as councillors, we need to be satisfied that it's permitted under the LEP, that it is legal and all works are done in accordance with the necessary legislation. We had training not that long ago where the General Manager organised specialist solicitors who work in the Land and Environment Court to provide us advice, and that was the advice. You look at your LEP, your DCP, the legislation. Now, it's a very comprehensive report that we've been given, 84 pages. It's very long, at times very tough reading. But I will give credit where it's due. Mr Muir did organise independent planners to undertake all or part of the assessment. I think that's correct, isn't it? Thank you. And during this process, There were found to be some failings in it, which is why it's a deferred consent. There is additional planning that needs to be undertaken. Now, during this process of public consultation, there was only one written submission from the public. That was about protecting the church just to the north of the power station. That will be addressed in a heritage management plan. Now, it is my understanding and my belief that Energy Australia will not demolish the entirety of this site. I believe that the negotiations to repurpose the site will go ahead, which will leave possibly 90% of the extant structures standing. If it doesn't, we end up with a greenfield site and we do not have any industrial land. But I don't believe that will be the case. I believe it will be repurposed. I believe that it will change the basis of our industry as we move forward. And basically, I agree with the deferred commencement. There are those reports that need to be done. It is legal. It meets all legislative requirements. That is what we need to consider, so I fully support it. Doesn't mean I'm happy with it if it does happen, but I fully support it.
I don't think it's whether we believe good things are going to happen out of that site or not. I think we've got to stick to the fact. Hopefully something does happen with the repurposing of that site, but there's no real reason for us to not go ahead with it.
Councillor McAndrew.
I think Councillor Goodsall summed it up pretty well. I rise reluctantly to support it, but I honestly don't think we have any other choice. But I do want to make a number of comments because this has been a difficult issue. It's we well know, Mayor, it's been an issue. It's not just I know tonight we're dealing simply with an application to demolish the old Wallerawang power station. I accept that. And as I said, I don't think we have any other option but to support what's been proposed. But there's been a lot of history behind this, and it's well aware that negotiations have been going on some time between Energy Australia and another entity to repurpose the site. And we're all hopeful that that will occur. Councillor Ring made the comment about there's been the one applicant response. That'll be very blunt. I honestly believe that the community thinks something will happen there. There's not too many of them concerned about whether this DA will go ahead or not, because I think in the minds of our community, especially around Wallerawang, that it'd be stupid for anything else but to have that site repurposed. I hope they're correct. I hope they're right. This is a great leap of faith, to be quite honest. Let's have a look at what's being proposed. There's 9 demolition zones, starting from the turbine hall, going through to miscellaneous. It's everything. That's everything. I don't believe if it is demolished, the point made about a greenfield site, we don't end up with a greenfield site, we end up with nothing. We don't own the site. It's never been owned by council. So as far as I'm concerned, if this deal between the entity and Energy Australia doesn't go ahead, then we will have a vacant, demolished site. And I hope I'm wrong, but it'll probably remain there for a long time. It's not our site. And the problem we've had all through this is that we've got the most to lose as a council in relation to this proposal, but really we've had no say, effectively, because it's an independent entity, it's the government, and it's Energy Australia. We're hopeful that there'll be a good outcome, and I know you yourself, Mayor, have fought so hard for this to get a good outcome. And I make the point again, once we were made aware in October, I think 2 years ago now, that Energy Australia were going to move ahead and simply demolish the whole site, we rightfully jumped up and down. And if we hadn't have jumped up and down, that site would have been demolished back then. So I take my hat off to you yourself for pushing this, and the hat off to the rest of the council who supported us in going forward. So I hope it all comes out well. But as far as it is tonight, we really don't have too much choice but to agree to the terms of the demolition and the deferred conditions put in place.
Thank you, Councillor McAndrew. Any other speakers? Just before you do, Councillor Ring, I have been very optimistic since this new entity has come on the scene. I continuously get on the radio Friday morning and say how optimistic I am about the repurposing of Wallerawang. I hope I'm right. I'm like Councillor McAndrew. It's very strange when you get a situation like this where you've got an owner that can demolish but not have to pay for the demolition. It's a very, very tricky situation, and over a period of time we've had different entities trying to do something about fixing up Wallerawang. But under the present proposal tonight, I can see no other way but that council support this demolition, this DA. I believe that the proponent that is at this particular time negotiating with Energy Australia are very, very confident themselves that they will come to a deal. Let's hope they're right. Thank you. Councillor Ring.
Well, I hope Councillor McAndrew's right, and I hope that the community are hopeful and supportive. And if that is the reason, great. And I am supportive of it, and I am hopeful. But I do not believe if it ends up a greenfield site, it won't be developed. At some stage, it will be developed. We have no industrial land that we own as a council. Energy Australia are not going to want to keep a massive paddock and a lake and maintain it. They're a business. They're about making money. Something will happen. But as Councillor McAndrew says, we don't really have a choice. We have to endorse this, meets all the legal requirements, end of discussion.
Okay, no other... that's a right to reply. I'll put that then. Those in favour? Against? Councillor Leslie Ian Smith.
I'd like to move the next item, 92.8, Mayor Thompson.
Yep. Councillor Statham.
This is a very, very, very important issue. It's been talked about now for several weeks, and I think it's got to crisis point. We have our main coal supply here at Mount Piper. Unfortunately, just at presently, Springvale coal at this moment in time is not the perfect coal for Mount Piper, as we all know. Centennial Coal now are going to get trucking of coal up from Clarence. I think there's been a great report on this with a lot of interest in it, a lot of, I guess, conditions, which is good. And I think the conditions that are there are fair, and I think they're negotiable, but they're fair. And I think that this is one way to keep our coal supply going into the future on a regular basis without laying people off at Mount Piper, which I believe somebody was laid off last week because of lack of coal. So I believe that this is one way to get the trucks. I think the conditions are excellent, and there will be people that won't agree with the conditions, but this is a very serious matter, and I think it needs to be dealt with as such.
Thank you, Councillor Statham. Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah, look, Councillor Statham's dealt with it pretty succinctly. I just want to make a couple of points so the recommendations are clear. There are empty trucks returning from Mount Piper going back to the Clarence mine. I understand that Blue Mountains Council has okayed the full trucks going through their area of Darling Causeway and Mount Victoria. I think it's to share the load. It's only appropriate that the empty trucks go back through our local government area, bearing in mind they're servicing from our mine to our power station effectively. But let me just touch on a couple of the points that will need to be adhered to by the trucking company. Truck movements to be limited to no more than 25 per day and no more than 8 in the hour. Haulage of coal shall only take place between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. Monday to Saturday, and between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. on Sundays and public holidays. And I take that means, of course, haulage of coal and the empty trucks going back can only, I take it that's what it means. the empty trucks.
If I could just make a statement here, Councillor McKendry, that the haulage of coal, there'll be no haulage of coal going backwards.
No.
The trucks will go back empty, and most probably even in number 4 there'll be no truck haulage. They'll be empty trucks.
I'm glad you picked that up, Mayor. Can we make sure that those recommendations are changed to reflect that? Okay.
It's just the wording, but it is wrong. Yep.
So I'll reiterate then that no truck movement shall occur within the approved route during the hours of 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. on any school day. So I think there's some checks and balances in there to make sure we protect our community and have the least amount of impact on it. Bearing in mind, of course, that the issue of coal supply to Mount Piper as a result of some of the outages at the Springvale mine is becoming a fairly topical issue.
Okay, any other speakers on this? Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The noise made by an empty truck would be comparable to the noise made by a full truck. And the danger imposed on our residents by an empty truck would be comparable to the danger imposed on our residents by a full truck. I can't support this motion. I can't support a motion that allows trucks on trucks till December the 31st, 2026 to travel as many kilometres as it takes from the Great Western Highway to the scenic.
May I just remind councillors that when they were harvesting pine from Newlands Junction, that they were coming down, there were fully laden pine trucks coming right through the middle of our town. So a few empty trucks going the other way, I can't see making any difference. So I just want to make that quite clear. Smith.
We know that in recent times there's been hundreds of truckloads of dirt go to the Mount Piper, the ash-planted kerosene vale, and we can okay fully laden trucks to come through, but we can't. This has got the stage. This is critical for our coal mining, not just coal mining fraternity, for our power generator. We need to make this happen and work with these companies, because if we can send a brick truck up the scenic, why can't we send an empty truck? I can't see the debate at all over this. It might sit well with some people in the community, but somewhere along the line we've got to keep putting the lights on.
Other speakers? Councillor Goodsall.
I had the same debate myself as Councillor Leslie. If they're coming through our town, we should send them back the same way and make them go an extra 23 minutes so to keep them off our main street and through our local government area, through the middle of our CBD. And I've since, it's a bit of a tit for tat. I think if they're coming one way, they should go out the other. It's all fair, and I think we should work with them to have both council areas impacted evenly.
Coleman.
I note that this is to happen up until the 31st of December 2026. My greatest concern is what's happening at Springvale. Is there some way we can provide support to those at Springvale? Do we know what's going to happen in the meantime to those workers there? Like, that really worries me. So do we have any more information in regards to those poor workers at Springvale?
Look, Councillor Smith would most probably know more about this than I do, but the way that I understand it, it is only a safeguard. By 2026, Angus Place will be going, Springvale will be going. It's only a safeguard in case one of those pits break down to the extent that it has at the moment. So that's my understanding of the truck movements. But Councillor Smith, I'll allow you to speak again because I know that you're aware of the problem.
For the people that don't know, and most of you do know, Mr Marshall's in the crowd over there tonight. This, as far as I'm aware, would only be a stopgap measure in the interim until We need Springvale back on coal before the 20th of November. Let me tell you now, here and now. That's how critical it is. Because we're in big trouble if they're not. So let's not kid ourselves. We need to work on a short-term bit of pain for a long-term gain. That's what it's all about. We need to work with this company and with the community as a whole I know it's not going to sit well with some people, but we can allow hundreds of trucks of topsoil to come down our roads and go back empty through our streets. So, you know, what's the difference? Springvale is in a world of heartache at the moment. Angus Place Colliery, and I'll give you a quick brief detail, is Angus Place and Springvale are working hand in hand to get the longwall chocks at Angus Place so they can put them into Springvale and start that longwall cutting. Otherwise, their longwall at Springvale, the roof's on the deck. We all know there's that much pressure on that wall. They're struggling to get ways to get it out. But at the present time, Springvale and Angus Place Colliery are working together with all the workforces, striving to get this place back on coal. And for our community, I hope to God it does happen. But we need to work together as a community on this and make it happen. A short-term bit of pain for a long-term gain for the whole community.
Thanks, Councillor Smith.
Just write a reply if nobody else wishes to speak. Councillor Smith and myself attended a meeting recently which Mr Marshall addressed. It's a big wake-up call. We sometimes haven't been in a situation quite as drastic as this. The bottom line is, I think council staff, I don't know whether this is headed up by Mr Muir, but they've made allowances for no school zones. They've made allowances for many things. There are some people in our community that still don't accept that we have coal. At the moment, coal puts bread and butter on the table, keeps people in positions. Mount Piper is the one that's going to be first affected. And I know for a fact last week I was told that one man was laid off because they do not have enough coal. So to get Clarence coal, which is fantastic coal, I use Clarence coal. It's much superior, no offence, but it's much superior to Springvale. And the coal at Springvale at the moment is going through a very difficult time. So we have to survive. Every business is affected by this, every coal miner, every person in charge of Mount Piper and Angus Place and Clarence. I think they've done a really good lot of work on trying to get a compromise through Mr Muir and his department and Mount Piper and Springvale Colliery. And I think that it's something that we cannot possibly ignore.
Thank you, Councillor Statham. That's the right reply. Shall put the... Would you beg your pardon?
Mr Majesty, number 3, where it says haulage of coal, it should say no truck movements.
Yeah. Everybody understand that? Okay, I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Councillor Leslie's against. Proposed lease to Australian Red Cross. Moved Councillor Statham. Seconded Councillor Goodwin.
I've been attending functions at the Australian Red Cross Society Hall now in Main Street. They're a hard-working group of people. They're doing a lot of work for overseas underprivileged children. I believe this is a necessity for Lithgow. They're very, very fortunate to have their own home, which they run cake stalls out of, fundraising events and meetings. I think it's a pleasing result to see Council negotiating a lease with them and recommending different ideas for them to survive. And I think this is one of our most reputable organisations in our country. It also services overseas, so I think it's a great idea to be able to renew that lease and have people that have been working for that association now for up to 50 years happy in their retiring life to know that they're going to have a Red Cross Hall.
So, Mr Mayor, I have an amendment, a point 4, that if no submissions are received by the closing date, then the General Manager be authorised to issue the lease.
I'd just like to say that they are a good group and they've allowed a young group to use the facility on a Saturday afternoon who do Dungeons and Dragons. So I think, yeah, they deserve to have the facility. It's good to see it put down into a proper lease.
Spring water treatment project modification 4.
Happy to move.
Councillor McAndrew, Councillor Smith. Councillor McAndrew.
Pretty self-explanatory, Mayor. It's the Springvale Water Treatment Project modification 4. It's continuing to put in place, firstly, a decision of the PAC going back some time ago to make sure that the Springvale mine continues to operate and the water from it is dealt properly and appropriately.
Unanimous. Proposed demolition construction of service station Great Western Highway.
Happy to move, Mayor.
It's a call in, yes.
BP Tweed.
BP Tweed.
Can I just give a brief overview? I'm not going. It's simply for calling in. I take that. I've been approached by a number of residents, and they're in the room here tonight, in relation to the proposed changes at the old BP Tweed. They're not opposed to changes at the old BP Tweed, but there's two major issues. There's one, 24/7 operation, and truck noise and issues. And I note even in the later report tonight, we've got an issue with heavy vehicle parking in 115 Great Western Highway, just across the road. So they're not opposed to the application and work being done there, but certainly got concerns with those two specific issues. And by calling it in, we'll all get an opportunity to deal with those.
Councillor Ring.
No, I fully support the commentary from Councillor McAndrew. I'd just like to ensure that we, whether or not we need an additional point, that as in the past, the administration organise an on-site meeting. So
yes.
That could be a second point. The administration to organise a on-site meeting for all councillors.
Yeah. I was going to suggest that myself, Councillor Ring. For consistency, we always do that with a called-in DA. I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Proposed new policy, alternate fuel rebates.
Happy to move, Mayor Thompson.
Happy to second.
No need to discuss. It's been a public exhibition, just to adopt.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yes, I also like to support this. Could I, however, draw your attention to a couple of very inefficient, smelly and toxic fireplaces that are in Lithgow? I know there are others, but there's one just directly opposite the Workmen's Club, and there's another one in Sanford Avenue, that they're just so bad that you walk out at, fortunately it's now coming into summer, so we won't get it so much, but you walk out just on dusk and you really choke from the fumes that are coming out of some of those places. I'm just wondering if it's at all possible for council staff somehow to actually approach these people and just point out the benefits that, you know, that there's a $1,000 rebate, or if they're pensioners, there's $1,400 rebate to actually replace these coal burners and for something that the rest of the city is just moving on. It's been such a great benefit to the city over the last 40 or so years. I mean, once upon a time you'd come down the scenic and you'd have to go through that inversion layer, and it doesn't happen now. But it still does cause problems and respiratory problems on some people, elderly people, and even just these very few that are left. Of course, they're the intransigent ones, I know, and they're the difficult ones to deal with. But I just would like to hope that we could. If there were ways that we could just perhaps move these last few people on.
Just a question, Mayor Thompson. Does Councillor Leslie want to put an additional item in? Is that what he's asking, or is it just a general point, just a statement?
It's a statement. I'm leaving it with the administration as to whether they can actually seek these people out and speak to them. I appreciate we can't tell them what to do. I appreciate we can't do anything else than encourage them. But maybe if we just let them know that these particular rebates are available.
Yeah, just a quick statement from Mr Muir.
I guess the simple answer is we do. If there's a complaint made about a particular appliance, one of the responses are to the person complained about, if you like, is that we do offer rebates. I'm not quite sure if these particular premises have been complained.
Okay, I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Carried unanimous. Economic Development and Environment Policy Review.
I'll move that way, Councillor.
Councillor Statham.
Thompson.
And Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Statham.
Once again, congratulations to council staff. I think it's a very informative report, and I think it really does speak for itself. If you read over it twice, it certainly, I can't see any faults in it, so I think that it's something that has been long needed, and I congratulate the staff, and I see no problems with it at all.
Councillor Goodwin.
No, I think it's a good report. It's transparent.
Any other speakers? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Infrastructure and Service Reports. Vandalism. Councillor Smith. Councillor Goodsall.
I think this is a very good thing. Going for the Sports Advisory Committee, and Councillor Goodwin knows this only too well, and so does Mr Edgecombe. We've had dramas down the wreck. We couldn't prove who it was. We know who it was, but we couldn't prove it. This is the best thing we've introduced, and thank you, Mr Edgecombe, if you've had something to do with this, because it's a great policy. And the sooner we implement this, people have got to realise the ratepayers own these facilities. They don't own them. They don't have them there to vandalise, and that's what's happened in the past. We couldn't nail them, and I hope in the future we do nail them, using our facilities and smashing them up on the drunken nights out. It's not what it's about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other speakers?
Just a question, Mayor. We already have a policy in place, and this is an upgrade. If we're keen to stop it, why is the maximum reward reduced from 5,000 to 1,000?
Mr. Mayor.
Is it a costing thing, or?
Mr. Edgecombe.
It's primarily a costing thing. There's never, as far as I'm aware, been a budget associated with these reward-based systems. It would come out of the maintenance budget, so I've lowered it and commensurate with the relevant damage that are generally reported. I didn't think a $5,000 reward was warranted.
Is it out there? Is it out there for people to realise that there is a reward for these type of things? Is it?
This is going out for public exhibition.
Yeah. I just hadn't seen it. Okay, I shall put that then. Those in favour.
Right.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Smith.
Question. In regard to the key policy, will that just apply? That'll apply to council-owned buildings and sporting facilities. Will the keys be handed in? This has been come up in a few times as Sports Advisory. They'll be on a full-time basis with this. Am I talking out of each or not?
I'm not sure.
It says key terms within the reference to the policy.
Key terms as in
key terms of the policy
definitions.
itself, not the keys of there.
No keys involved.
I think it's a good policy we need to have in regards to council-owned facilities, that when groups are finished leasing these facilities they use, they need to hand them in. They need to hand the keys in and then take them up again when their season or whatever starts. That's what we need to get on top of, because I can't see the reasons why community groups have these keys all year round and they only use them for half the season.
Those in favour? Carried. Unanimous. Vehicle and plant GPS location and monitoring.
I'll move that, thank you.
Councillor Statham, have I got a second? Councillor Good. Councillor Statham.
I do know quite a few businesses lately that have put GPS location and monitoring in their vehicles, and whether it be bulldozers, backhoes, or their utes for business. I think that it's actually a great safety reason. It's also a great way of implementing, I guess, all the workers to have as much transparency as possible, even though we know our workers are diligent and work to what they're supposed to be doing. But I think it's going to go out on public exhibition for 28 days, this policy, and I think it'll be quite a good policy for people to have their say, and it'll be interesting to see what the comments are that come back.
Yeah, I just think this is the way of the world at the moment. All of our cars are GPS tracked. Most businesses now GPS tracked, so I think it's a really good idea and a good initiative by the council.
Mayor Thompson, if I may, for you, ask a question of the administration. In the commentary, it talks about the council's joint consultative committee. Could I ask who are the members of that committee?
Staff and management delegates. Does it come through?
Not names, just positions. Just positions.
Got it. Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, Councillor Ring, it's an elected group, so it's elected from time to time according to its constitution. It's made up of representatives from the major unions, non-union representatives and staff.
That was my question. So I'm glad to see that the JCC has been consulted, and I'm glad to see that there's positive feedback, because I'm always worried about whether or not we're invading onto staff's privacy, so that's good.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I'll just add that it's also been looked at by our Health and Safety Committee as well.
A water and wastewater report. Director of Water and Wastewater.
Move the adoption of the report.
Councillor McAndrew and Councillor Smith, second. Councillor McAndrew.
Self-explanatory.
Councillor Smith?
No.
Any commentary? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Carried unanimous. Cullumbullen Progress Hall.
I'll move that way, thank you.
Happy to second.
Move Councillor Statham. Councillor Statham.
A group of residents from Cullumbullen have been discussing with me over the last several months as to a way forward with the hall. They're very reluctant to give it up and pass it over to council, but more recently a couple of them had some ill health and feel that they're ageing and they don't want the hall to be not used. It's a very difficult situation, but now I think it's a unanimous situation by the Progress Association out there that they feel that it's beyond their control to get a new executive coming through that perhaps is a little younger than the previous executive. They do hold quite a few wakes out there, functions, CWA, Red Cross functions. It's used, it's utilised, it's very much loved, the hall. And in the event that council choose to take that hall over, I think there won't be a lot of ongoing costs for a number of years. It's quite up to scratch. I think, as the report says, it has very little needed doing to it in the short term. And I agree with the way the hiring has been set out down the bottom. I think that's very fair. I think it's a sad day for Cullen if they do lose their hall, but alternatively, they don't have a choice. So it is a big decision for council tonight to also take on that hall. But it is an active group of people out there, but a very small group, and a lot of their working days have unfortunately are behind them from now on.
I agree with the comments made by Councillor Statham. They've been a fantastic volunteer organisation out there, but equally I've had people say to me they're ageing and they can't get anyone to fill the gaps. It's important we look at it, but I just want to comment in relation to the report itself on page 69. Council officers will meet with Representatives Association and resolve these queries. That was in relation to the second letter we received after the request to take the hall over. Taking into consideration the need to ensure that Council's management of the hall is consistent with the administration of other Council-owned halls. And it goes on further to say Council ownership of the hall should be a prerequisite to Council taking responsibility for maintenance and renewal of the hall. So I see the recommendation is authorising the General Manager to progress negotiations with Cullen Progress Association, and note that the negotiation with Cullen Progress Association will include resolutions or queries raised in the Association letter of the 12th of August and discussions on the transfer of ownership of the hall building to Council, bearing in mind, of course, that the comment earlier about consistency in relation to how Council manages all of its halls.
Thanks, Councillor McAndrew. Any other discussion? We've got to recommend...
Thompson, sorry. At the Finance Committee where we did discuss the second letter, the conditions, I did raise the fact that it may be possible to in fact grandfather, or as Trinity pointed out, grandmother some of the clauses or some of the conditions, given it is an ageing population. They've put a lot into it. I totally concur with Councillor McAndrew. We need to be consistent, but it is an ageing community. I think we could cut them a little bit of slack for a couple of years at least. I'd like that taken into consideration.
I'm sure that the General Manager will take that into consideration. I think that it's virtually covered. To authorise the General Manager to progress negotiations, I think it's fairly well covered.
Yeah, Mayor Thompson, I wasn't saying it for an additional point. Yeah. I just wanted to flag
the situation. I understand that. Yeah, exactly. Councillor Statham, you write a reply? No. Fine. Okay, then I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Carried? Unanimous? Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee. Chief Financial Officer. Who moved that? Councillor Leslie, was it? Councillor Leslie. Councillor Ring.
No, look, I think it's straightforward. Mayor Thompson, no need to speak to it.
Any other speakers? No, I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Carried? Review of risk management. Have I missed one? Oh, sorry. Employment issues and cost pressures.
Happy to move, Mayor Thompson.
Councillor Ring. Have I got a second, Councillor Goodsall? Councillor Ring.
Look, I think the report's fairly straightforward. Employment costs are a challenge to any organisation and represent a major component of costs. I think the administration have provided a more than adequate report that outlines the changes and differences and why they've occurred. So yes, I do fully support.
Councillor Smith.
I just want to ask a question in regards to, and I know this is always a pet of mine and Councillor McAndrew's, in regards to our staff numbers, Graham, are our outdoor staff up to the numbers they should be, or are we floating on par with what we require, or are we below what we require? Or this is the question we always ask you.
Look, I might take it on notice and
Okay, that's fine.
come
You
back
mean
in
to be on the
detail,
spot, yeah.
but I can tell you that there's been no reductions
Okay.
in the outside workforce. To my knowledge, Wang is working very well.
Yeah.
There have been some promotions out there as they go up the line, and we're recruiting for the replacements down below. And Lithgow, I think, Jono, is doing very well. Yeah. So
Would it be too much drama with the councillors were to get an updated numbers on the variance between, you know, the indoor staff and outdoor staff? Thank you.
Sorry.
As the seconder, I'd like to speak.
Yeah, go for it.
I think this is a really healthy explanation from Mr Gurney about the $1.3 million and where it's been allocated.
Thompson, I appreciate Councillor Smith asking the question. I don't know how healthy it is to try and compare indoor and outdoor staff. It's whether or not we have the staff necessary to do the work that we have and the staff that we can afford. It's critical that we can fund what we have or we get it. What I am happy about is that Mr Muir's been able to secure some additional planning staff, which has been difficult over the last few years because he's got a hell of a lot of work to do over the next 12 months. By God, we're going to make him earn those staff.
Yes, councillors, if I could just alert you to the fact that it's not just a matter of us managing our staff resources as well. We have moved to shore up in the operations area, the water and waste area as well, given the problems we've had down there. We've mentioned no mapping and the costs involved in that. But there have been two initiatives from the state government recently which result in cost shifting and directions to local government regarding the appointment of people. So the first one I think was in Mr Muir's area where we're told we had to appoint somebody that had native title experience. But more recently there's been a directive from the Office of Local Government, rather a discussion paper that's come out indicating that within 12 months or 24 months we will have to, all local governments, will have to appoint a senior executive for audit, which, you know, for this council is a significant amount of money, and of course there's the flow-on effects of that relating to resourcing that position, other parties that need to be involved. So we're in the process of preparing a response to that that requirement, saying it's unfair obviously on rural and regional councils, but they're the sorts of pressures that are imposed on councils, particularly in the regions, where we're told we have to employ particular people, not because it's our decision. Yeah.
No need to discuss it, Mayor Thompson. It's been a public exhibition. It's back. Let's just adopt it.
I'll move that, Mayor Thompson.
Happy to second.
I think this is an excellent report as well on Director of People and Services. It's very clear, very precise, and I think it's a great idea for the continuity of the business in to do with local government area.
Social media and defamation.
Yes, I have a great interest in this particular item. I've been sued 4 times with 3 successes and 1 continuing. Defamation is something that people need to be very aware of. Something that you feel is definitely not defamatory could be turned into defamatory. I've had great faith in the people that have been counselling me, and as far as the legal team goes, I've been, I guess, not picked on, but I've certainly been a target. And fortunately for me, I've won 3 of these major issues. So I believe that saying in the general public at the beginning of the meeting that you have to be careful what you say, how you say it, who it's directed to. And as far as Facebook goes, I would urge every councillor in this room to only put on Facebook things about their family, because things can be so misinterpreted that before you know it, you have somebody sending you a letter to be sued. So my experience would be that defamation is something that's out there and about there at the moment. It wasn't heard of 20 years ago. It was very, very little information about it. But I think telling the public gallery that it's essential that you be careful what you say, I think that otherwise you can have a gruelling life, and at the end of it you know you're innocent and you've been proved innocent, but it's something that you won't forget in your life. So I do agree with this excellent report. It needs to be taken very seriously.
I'm glad this report has been tabled to all of us. I think it's important that we all know about defamation, and the way it's been explained is very good. So, no, good report.
Mr Mayor, I've got a question to the Director of People and Services. I refer to the article at the bottom of page 77, Legal and Risk Management Implications, which refers to the Council and Officers Scheme Insurance. My question really is, would this insurance scheme apply if, for example, a staff member charges a councillor with a code of conduct breach and statements within the charge are found to be defamatory? Would the staff member be covered in that instance?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Look, I don't believe any of the staff are qualified to answer that. You would need some sort of legal interpretation from somebody qualified in the area. My experience with defamation, and I have taken defamation action previously in other areas, it is very complex law, and you never know what's going to happen until such times you get the opinions. Certainly common sense doesn't seem to apply in some cases.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Any other commentary?
Happy to second. Over time, small graphics. It's listed in the LEP.
It's listed.
Yeah, I just want to know, when we talk about heritage grants, we're going down, or is this just smaller grants?
Sorry, my experience, and I think, and probably what Councillor Leslie and Councillor Ring might also have something to say about, is that these are small grants. Over the years, it's been few and far between that I've seen even dollar for dollar matching grants for large-scale projects in the heritage sphere, but there are sometimes other avenues.
Yes, Mr Muir, through you, Mayor Thompson. Cramer Park has been lobbied for now for 7 years, I believe. Is that really designated heritage? Because I was certainly unaware of that. I know some of the other buildings there are dedicated to heritage, but Creamer Park, I wasn't certainly wasn't aware of that.
It's. I'm looking at Councillor Ring. He's done some research. I'm pretty sure it's on the list.
The whole of the buildings there are heritage listed at a local level.
Right, a local level. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to move that, please.
I'll second that, thank you.
Now, this is a committee that's a very well, working really hard. We had a great, productive meeting. I did want to bring attention to something that was in the minutes. It was Dementia Action Week between the 16th and the 22nd of September. I know that we've missed the boat, but we were looking at hopefully another function in the library like we did last year. I did move a motion in regards to that last year, so I just want to bring that to your attention. Also want to bring your attention to that there was discussion in regards to a fence around the new adventure playground. There's been concerns there, but overall the meeting was very productive and it was great to have a full committee on board.
No, I can condone with Councillor Coleman, thank you.
Mayor Thompson, if I could, I'd just like to ask, not a direct question that I expect an answer, but I'd just like to put to Councillor Coleman, I believe she chairs this committee, as the next meeting, possibly that it would be beneficial if they did a calendar of events like Dementia Week that could then be discussed and included, if there are costs, into the budget process, so that we know 12 months in advance these events may happen and it may not have to come back to council because we'll have a small budget there. It can just happen.
I think I'd actually like that as a point too, that we investigate the opportunity of an event calendar attached with the budget.
I'd be happy with that.
That's very kind.
Okay. Is that the right reply or?
Yeah, that's fine.
Happy to move or second? I'll second. Yeah, second. Yeah, Mayor, happy to move and specifically want to talk about recommendation 2. I want to make the point that the decision for the footpath construction to fund the garden bed improvements, Walgett Street and Willowall Street, Portland, was made back in June. And I'm concerned that it's taken 3 months to even start on it. And I recall back in the June meeting that there was an attempt to defer and delay the Walgett Street, Willowall Street footpath construction, but that was effectively defeated by an amendment by Councillor Statham. And I want to read from Councillor Statham's amendment at that time, and I quote in part 9, that the Portland Garden project be considered as a matter of priority. And when I went to school, priority meant first, now, before everything else. And I find now 3 months down the track we've done nothing. I know there's been something to say about the The reason for that is the $30,000. Well, the $30,000 was known back in the meeting in June. It was quite clear what the cost of the garden bed improvements were. So I'm not trying to be critical of anyone or anything, but I'm concerned that a proper decision of council was made back then, and it's taken 3 months and we're still dealing with the matter. That concerns me, especially with the recommendation, clear recommendation and endorsement by the majority of councillors that the matter be deemed a priority by Councillor Statham. So I make those points, but happy to move the report, and hopefully we can see it done sooner than later.
As Councillor McKendry has said, the Mayor exercised his delegation to allow commencement of the project prior to council consideration. And so it's got to be a priority, and why is it taking so long? We need to get...
Yes, Mr Mayor. I'd ask you to rule point 2 of the recommendation of this recommendation out of order. The minutes of the council meeting, which were adopted at the beginning of this meeting, included a motion and an amendment dealing with the Operations Committee meeting held on the 7th of August 2019. The only difference between the motion and the amendment was that the amendment removed the words, Council reallocate $30,000 from PJ 100-466 footpath construction to fund. This amendment was carried unanimously. Now we find that these exact words are being put back. If you don't like a decision of the council, and it's irrelevant whether the decision is a unanimous one, although it was, then it requires the rescission motion to overturn it. It's not for the Operations Committee to overturn council resolutions, council decisions. Only the council can do that via a rescission motion. And the councillors on the Operations Committee have had the time to organise one, because all councillors were sent my email. And I'll read the email, which was sent on the 6th of September to you, a copy to all councillors. Dear Ray, the decision of the Operations Committee to recommend to Council that Council reallocate $30,000 from PJ 100-466 footpath construction to facilitate the garden bed improvements at Walgan and Williwar Street, Portland, is in my view unlawful. This decision was the decision of Council, supported by all councillors present, including yourself. Should you decide to change the decision, you must put forward a rescission motion signed by 3 councillors. I also disagree with the writer of the report presented to the Operations Committee. The use of words such as "it is understood that the intent" and "unfortunately" should not be used to overturn decisions of council and do not accurately reflect the debate on the night of the council meeting. A decision of council is a decision of council, but nonetheless, I recommend that you view the tape, and you will see and hear that I did speak on the need to keep the $30,000 for the footpath. I spoke at length at that council meeting about the need to keep the $30,000 for footpath construction in Lithgow, and particularly in Main Street. I've had many representations from people who believe that there should be footpaths and ramps in Main Street, and the $30,000 is part of that process. Now, you can't just suddenly turn around and decide that a recommend, and here it is, the Operations Committee minutes. There were seven points on that motion, which was moved by Councillors Ring and seconded Councillor Smith, and seven points. The second point is the only one that was varied between the motion and the amendment, and the council adopted the amendment to remove the council reallocate the $30,000 from PJ 100-466 footpath construction. They removed it, and yet we've got a motion here, which is the exact same motion that was changed, unanimously changed by the council. So I'm asking you to rule this particular point 2 out of order, as it doesn't comply with either the Code of Meeting Practice or even the Local Government Act.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. If I could just, obviously the administration and Councillor Leslie have a different view on the process here, so I'd just like to outline our understanding of it. The original decision that came up through the Operations Committee, which I think contained a recommendation moved by yourself, did not contain a funding source for the works. It certainly talked in terms of the costs, but it did not contain a funding source, and the Council needs to allocate funds from a source. This was raised in the Operations Committee, and at the Operations Committee, the Mayor was requested by the members to expedite this and use his executive power between council meetings so we could speed up the process and get the work done out at Portland? Portland, yeah. That was the recommendation that was made at the Operations Committee, but soon after that there was an email from yourself that called into question that recommendation, indicating it should come back to council, it should be a council prerogative. So the Mayor did not utilise his executive power but brought it back to council, and that's why it's back here. So the delay has been caused because of the issues that you arose through your memo to councillors. The Mayor certainly went to the Operations Committee and sought approval to use his executive power to identify a funding source so the work could be done, but it's had to come back to council, and that's why the delays.
Mr Mayor, I'd have to respond to that. I at no point in my speech just then referred to point 4, that the Mayor exercise his delegation to allow the commencement of the project prior to the Council's consideration. I've got no problems if the Mayor chooses to exercise that to start the process. My objection is the removal of the $30,000 from the footpath construction. That is, footpath construction for Lithgow. And the other thing that was that the Council in January or February did specifically removed from the Code of Meeting Practice was the requirement that any motion put forward, either from Council notices of motion or even from mayoral minutes, provide funding. That was specifically taken out of the Code of Meeting Practice. And yet every time we come up with, but you haven't yet allocated where the money's coming from. It's not the responsibility of the councillors to find that. And Council specifically took that notice out, unanimously took that position out and kept the money, the $30,000, in the funds for footpath construction within the Lithgow area. I still ask for you to move this.
I would say that if I asked every councillor that's out there what their perception was that night, that the $30,000 came out of the football fund.
It doesn't matter what the perception is, it's what's written here. Points 1 to 7, identical with the motion and the amendment. The only difference is point 2, where the council unanimously removed the phrase Council reallocate $30,000 from PJ 100-466 footpath construction to fund.
Mr. Please, Mayor.
If anyone wants to see the minutes to prove what I'm saying.
Just one moment. The General Manager wants to make a statement.
Mr Mayor, the administration cannot just choose where it's going to take funds from in order to expend for one council resolution as against another. It's illegal to do that. We need council approval to say that it's okay to take funds from a particular area. That's why we recommend where the funds come from, and you consider whether that's appropriate and agree it.
Mate, tell me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it out of a footpath fund for the LGA? It didn't say specifically Lithgow, it said a footpath fund for the LGA.
So with reference to our capital works program for this financial year, I could break down the entirety of our operational plan into 3 main categories. One would be roads, the other would be footpaths, and the other one would be stormwater. We can take money from any of those projects, but the only project in the operational plan for this financial year is that Lithgow footpath renewals. it's not new construction, and I want to make that clear. It's renewals of existing, and there was $367,000 for that, and the administration's proposing that we reallocate 30. If we do not choose to reallocate it from this project, it would need to come from roads or stormwater.
Mayor Thompson? Everybody wants the gardens in Portland to go ahead. I know I did. I seconded the motion at the last meeting. So, you know, I think for me it's about process. What's been passed at the last meeting and what was adopted earlier this night is now in contradiction to the motion here. I think the process for me is this then contradicts what we passed at last month and what was adopted this morning, adopted earlier this evening. So if this is what the administration or the operations committee wishes to do, my understanding in regards to process, they need to put a rescission motion up, and this contradicts what was earlier adopted tonight.
Councillor McAndrew. Yep.
August meeting, I was on personal business. If anything, the decision taken in June was the standing decision. It would have needed a rescission motion in August if there was some change to that, in my view. So I'm finding myself here in the September meeting, and it certainly wasn't raised in the July one, but decision taken in June, proper amendment put by Councillor Statham, and I'm not speaking for Councillor Statham, but it was clear in her amendment, and I have it here in front of me, that the beds were to be a priority, and back in dot points of 4, Portland Garden Beds improvements, Walgan Willywall Street, estimated cost $30,000. I'm not speaking for her, but I would expect that when she moved to amend her amendment for a priority, then the $30,000 was to be spent. That's what I take it meant. That's certainly why I supported her amendment on that night. Now, whether it comes from PJ 100-466 or somewhere else, to me is not important. Yes, it's got to come from somewhere, but that decision was made back in June to spend $30,000 on the garden beds in Portland, and if there was to need to be a rescission motion to change that, if that was changed, then there should have been a rescission motion at the meeting I missed in August. Of course, that decision was taken in June. I can't understand what we're arguing about.
I agree with Councillor McAndrew, through you, Mr Mayor. I'm quite surprised at the debate on this. I remember clearly on the evening there was quite a lot of debate, and Councillor Coleman and Councillor Ring deferred the motion. I put in an amendment. The amendment was successful. As far as I'm concerned, it's cut and dry, black and white, no grey areas. As far as I'm concerned, what Councillor McAndrew has said is absolutely correct. The money was allocated. At no stage did we say, oh, we might have to go and bring it back to another meeting. That was the June meeting. It was to come back. We got the result, and the people out there were told at the end of June. So they are waiting for something to happen.
Okay, well, look, I'm going to put the recommendation in...
Mayor Thompson, I'd like to speak, if I may.
The rule on the request I did, either rule it in or rule it out, the request that the point 2 be declared unlawful.
Well, I'm going to rule it out on what Councillor McAndrew has said. Okay, Councillor Ring.
Look,
just
I wasn't at the last Operations Committee meeting, but when I did see the email...
Can I just clarify, is your request ruled out? Is that what the Mayor has ruled?
Yes, yes.
You're right, okay.
Thank you. I wasn't at the last meeting, but decisions were made by the council. And when I did see the email, I mean, I'm a little bit confused. I mean, there appears to be some valid points either side, but at the end of the day, I would have been happy for the Mayor just to exercise his prerogative in between meetings, make the decision, it's done. Yeah, I really have no problem. We made a decision, regardless of who voted for it or not, we made a decision. Bang, let's just move forward.
Look, before Councillor McAndrew has his right to reply, what we've got to remember is it hasn't rained. If we get a downpour, they're in the same position that they have been for ages. we need to get it fixed.
May I just speak? I don't like speaking again. I never do this. But as of today, I've been notified of a lady that was tripped over in Portland Main Street. Yes, all right, you know about it, obviously.
Councillor McAndrew, right to reply.
Very, very briefly, I forgot an important point when I spoke earlier. I come back to the position quite simply. The decision was taken properly and appropriately in the June meeting for a cost of $30,000, and I make the point that was a council decision, not an operations committee decision. That was a council decision. And I can't understand, I'm repeating myself now, I can't understand why we're standing around tonight, 3 months later, still trying to decide the issue.
Okay. Righto, then I'm going to put the recommendation. Those in favour? Against? Councillor Leslie.
Yeah, I'll move it with an amendment to point 2.
I'll second that.
Sorry. The item was brought up and a 15-minute parking limit was rejected by the committee. As a result of bringing this to the attention of the committee, a submission was also tabled by the RMS requesting the movement of the no stopping sign outside the Blue Fox back 11 metres from the front of their restaurant. This means that the proprietors of the Blue Fox and the Fast Fox will lose valuable parking spaces directly in front of their businesses. The no stopping sign will now be erected opposite the entrance doors to the Fast Fox, which is completely ludicrous. When we as a council should be doing everything in our power to assist local businesses to succeed, a decision as important as this should have been treated with the business people in mind. To my knowledge, I can't remember the sign being placed anywhere else but other than this location. I previously lived in Cupro Street for 25 years, and at that time I'm not aware of any accidents that are directly a result of that no stopping zone. This will take away 3 out of 4 car spaces from the front of their business, affecting their business. And I note that this motion was, my amendment will state that Council, this is for point 2, that Council and RMS explore other solutions such as extending road markings to retain as much car parking space as possible at the front of the Blue Fox and Fast Fox and report back to the Council and TAC Committee. Now, I have to also say that where that sign is very close to a turning zone out the front of their shop. I've been down there and I've had a look, and if you're right on that no parking zone, a small portion of a standard car would be on the line of the no turning zone or the turning zone. But even if you took that back 1 or 2 metres, that car would be out of that turning zone. I don't know the rules and regulations in relation to what the RMS consider safe or not, but I think this is a very important issue for those businesses that we explore, maybe other areas that we can try and help them out rather than just moving that sign straight back. So if we can do that, that would be fantastic.
Councillor Statham.
Yes, just very briefly, I think that what Councillor Goodwin has recommended, you have 2 businesses in town that are doing very well, and we have to provide as much car parking space as possible that's legal. And I think if the RMS can come on board and inspect that area and see if they can only get 1 or 2 more car parking spaces, it would be very beneficial for those 2 meetings. Congratulations to the council for the approval of Bowen Falls Railway Station 150th anniversary celebrations. I think that's a great idea. We have to have traffic management control, but I think that's something that council needs to be recognised for. And just one thing, question without notice, is I was at All Saints, La Salle on Thursday evening, and I noticed some strange signs coming to and from La Salle. I don't know whether any of the other councillors noticed them. They're bright blue, they're small, and it says Bathurst. Did anyone notice them? Could anyone please explain to me as to the purpose of those? I've had so many people say to me, what are they for, how come they're there, and how ridiculous. Now, I don't know that they're ridiculous, but if somebody could enlighten me to tell other people what they are, I'd be quite happy. Jonathan? Mr Edgecombe?
I shared your confusion at one point. I was about 3 steps away from tearing them all down myself.
Oh, good.
But they were installed when council built the adventure playground. There were some concerns around vehicles managing the approach to intersections and which ones they should use to go to Bathurst and to go towards Katoomba for vehicular safety. We wanted them using the signalised crossing, which is why those were put up to make sure that vehicles were travelling the right way, essentially. It was just a temporary traffic measure.
Just before Councillor Leslie, Mr Edgecombe wanted to make a comment on the parking.
Yeah. So just a quick summary of the discussion at the TALC meeting. The no stopping signs were proposed to be extended just to meet the existing slip lane, which is Councillor Goodwin touched on just there. It's just to make sure that no vehicles encroach on that slip lane, which can be a danger if people are trying to have stopped to turn right at the viaduct there and wish to negotiate around them or turn left. And the second one was the reason for declining the request for 15-minute timed parking wasn't anything to do with the Blue Fox or the Fast Fox. It was a matter of precedent. It was just the decision was made as a matter of precedent in terms of limited parking throughout all of our main street. If we allow shop owners to put in requests for those sorts of things, it becomes difficult to manage down the track. But the big issue is the slip lane. The signs need to be extended or the lines need to be changed, because at the moment parking is allowed within a slip lane.
Thank you, Mr. I was actually at the TALC meeting. My understanding was that it was the Fast Fox that actually asked the traffic committee to install that 15 minutes parking because of their new business. Before, when they had only just had the Blue Fox, that didn't worry them because they didn't mind people staying quite a while. But when you had the two businesses, one's a fast food, one's you wanted this. But the committee considered, and thank you, Mr Edgecombe, didn't like the idea of having a precedent set that outside a business that you could have particular restriction on parking, and 15 minutes seemed whilst it might work for a fast food, it seemed a bad precedent for the rest of the town. I'd like to move an amendment that, because the traffic committee was trying to do the right thing by everybody. And if Councillor Goodwin feels that it hasn't succeeded, well, I respect that. But of course, decisions of the traffic committee have to be unanimous by three voters: the RMS, the council, this council, and the police. So just changing the decision here hasn't brought the other two votes, or perhaps even the state member's representative who rarely turns up. But unless it's the decision's unanimous, then of course you can't change it. So I think the only way to do that is to refer the whole issue back and have Councillor Goodwin be there to explain what he wants. The traffic committee's trying to do the right thing. They didn't like the idea of a precedent. they thought that moving the no standing made it easier to turn the corner, but we can look at it again.
Look, I think that's a fair assessment. Never remember seeing an accident there. I do believe that the turning lane has come back too far from the corner. I don't most probably agree with a 15-minute parking sign. It was never there before. That does create a precedent, but it's certainly I think that the turning lane has come back too far. If there's a car turning and you can't get round, you just got to wait like you do at every other corner. You know, like you don't have to be slipping in around the inside. If there's not enough room at a lot of other corners where there's a four-way intersection, you just got to wait until they turn. So, yeah, but I agree with what Councillor Leslie said. I think it should go back to Tulk.
So I have a...
Councillor Smith.
Sorry. Mr. Darrell to take up for me in regards to Mr. Alex Dengate at Wang. I know that this issue, the council's management seem to think that Mr. Dengate's issue is compliant. Mr. Dengate, and not only myself and Councillor Goodwin also don't think it's compliant. All we're asking for is one sign for Mr. Dengate so he can find his driveway coming over the crest of Barton Avenue. What we need to do here is get the TAL committee or someone from the senior management to come out with us and have a look. It's a shocking hill, that Barton Avenue hill. Mr. Dengate is one driveway. You go from Barton Avenue, there's concealed driveways on the right-hand side. They can have a sign, but Mr. Dengate can't. I don't believe the decision that the council's made in that regard is right, and I think we need to right the wrong. Myself and Councillor Goodwin are both on the same page here. We're only talking a concealed driveway sign near the fire station. It's not a drama. So I just believe that we need to make this situation right. Mr. Dengate has a long battle for a long, long time with the help of a lot of the council and the councillors to get his driveway in. I'd hate to see them people have an accident. I know, I just want to bring it up. I just want to bring it up about the TAL.
Look,
Councillor Leslie, I couldn't put it up because there was a mistake in Mr. Goodwin or Darrell Goodwin going to the meeting because he thought the meeting started at 4:30, not 11 o'clock. It's the only reason I brought it to the attention of the council.
Let me say that Councillor Leslie's put an amendment that that item goes back to Tulk. Can I get a seconder for that, please, Councillor Coleman?
I just have
Is there any speakers to the amendment?
Yeah, I'll just second it, so...
Yep.
So let me just get this let me understand this. Is the whole issue of Cupro Street going back to Talc, or is the whole meeting, like what actually... Just Cupro Street going back to Talc. So we're going to then move everything, except everything but point 2. Right, I just need that cleared.
No, can I just, yeah, that's fine, going back, but am I reading it right that we've got RMS on the TALC committee as well, so they don't agree with it? What happens with it, even when you take it back? What happens with it? So am I reading that council can't make a decision about their own streets?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there are a certain number of traffic regulations and rules and regulations that were delegated to councils by the RMS, but that was under the provision that all local government organisations, all local councils, convene a TALC committee of some sort, some call them different things, to make decisions collectively on those sorts of delegated functions. We are required. The TALC committee is not a Section 355 committee, as the majority of other councils committees are. So any decision made by council needs to go back to the RMS for consultation purposes. They determine whether there's any legal issues or non-compliances, and then they make a decision. If it's a simple matter of no parking or 15-minute parking and there's no legal implications, I don't see that they would have many problems with it, but it's more for council's protection than anything else.
Mayor, I just had the second question on what become of the heavy vehicle park and parking 1115 Great Western Highway, Lithgow. What was the outcome of that? I can't find it in the... I couldn't find it in the minutes, that's all. It's highlighted, but I can't. Yeah.
No change was made at all. It was just referred to the police for further, because we couldn't apply any. The TAL couldn't apply any further traffic restrictions, which would impact on the vet there, and there was nothing really to stop these big trucks parking there regardless. So it was a case of if enough big trucks get fined, maybe they'll be on their CBs and tell everybody else don't park there. That seemed to be the only answer.
I'm going to put the amendment then first. Those in favour of the amendment? It's unanimous. So the amendment becomes the motion. I will put the motion. Those in favour? Carried. Unanimous. Thank you. Finance Committee meeting.
Thompson. No discussion, Mayor Thompson.
I've got one that... Oh, sorry, Councillor McAndrew.
Mayor, just one. Yourself, myself, Councillor Goodwin and Councillor Statham attended a very good meeting at Dr. Rahn's surgery last week, and there was a lot discussed about health and wellbeing and the like, but specifically, and the reason I'm raising it an urgent matter tonight, and hoping you deem it that way because I've got something that flows from it, was raised again about the submission that was put forward by Dr. Rahn in relation to funding from the federal government, of which we supported as a council. I think that goes back to very early this year, and that he's not heard anything. So if you deem it as urgent, Mayor, I'd like to put forward a motion, if I may. All right. Well, I stand to if we can make it urgent, I can. I'll listen to both views. Yes. All right. Well, my understanding is he's still waiting on the outcome of that submission, and he's heard no more. And I don't think anyone's heard anything. I'm just wondering whether. Well, I'd like to move that we send a letter off to the federal member. I think it's federal. The federal member, Andrew G, just to see where that. And I can't recall what the submission, what the grant was, but if we can do that and just find out where that grant's up to. If I could get a seconder for that, I'll be happy.
I'll put that to council. I've got to put it to council.
Yeah, yep.
Is council happy to have this as a matter of great urgency?
When was the meeting?
Could I please have a say?
Friday.
It may alter when I know the information I have been told before they vote. It may be purposeful to hear.
Well, I'm just asking for it to be made urgent, then we can have the debate.
Yes, it may be made urgent, I agree, but
yeah.
it may be that we need to have
I'm
some
happy
of
to
your
listen.
work and some of my work joined together.
Happy to listen.
Yeah. Without saying anything out of line, I have been contacted by the federal member because it was me that lobbied for the money back in 2015. I think that money came through in 2016, quite a while ago, and there's been a great concern from government that it hasn't been even talked about, initiated or spent. Is this what we were at the other day? They had got money here in recent times, allocation of several $1 million, that for to Dr. Haran's 300,000, 300,000, and there was money already some previous time back. So the $300,000 has been allocated to Dr. Haran, and to my belief, that money has not been shown any signs of being spent. So now there's a hurry up on because the federal government doesn't want to take that money back. So I only know what I've been told. It may be incorrect. I doubt that it's likely because that money was allocated when I was mayor. So yes, of course. That's why I was very careful what I said.
All I know, Mayor, is what we were told on the day, and you can recall at the meeting I asked the question, where are we up to with the funding from the submission that was supported by this council earlier this year? And I was told that there's nothing heard from it, so I thought, well, it would be appropriate, seeing we supported the submission, that we, at least
I think we need to. There's so much, ifs, buts, maybes. We need to understand if there's money allocated, if money wasn't allocated, and where it was allocated to. There's just so many question marks.
I agree to write to the local member with great urgency.
What's the feeling of the council? Council happy? Yep, right. I shall put that down. Over. Those against?
No, I'm for it.
No, Councillor Ring and Councillor Ring.
Just one more matter that may be of consideration for great urgency. After speaking to hearing Mr. Wickett in the public forum tonight, I don't know whether council could write to the RFS, and because it's such a hazardous area where that is, we're in for a very long summer. I'm wondering if there could be a fire burn off in with back burning or in the hazard reduction work that they do in the near future in the Lithgow area, where Mr. Whitty seems to think that it's a very, very, very dangerous area. We don't want that to happen again.
We certainly don't. I do deem that as great urgency, and we'll get the general manager himself will chase it. Okay, we move now into...
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I have one also. Mr Ken Bird is one of our great citizens, and he's the WASP man. And this is the WASP season. Now, I appreciate I should have put this in as a notice of motion like the other 10. But I'd like to ask the council if they could just contact him just to see what support they can give him on his campaign in this new season, now that all the European WASP queens are coming out, so that if we can catch as many queens as we can at this stage, every queen you catch is a nest that doesn't happen, and the danger you have to some of the local peoples, just plus the damned irritation of these wasps, it really needs to be dealt with. I guess it's not an urgent matter, but
it is an urgent matter because they have no proportion in the town.
But he's such a wonderful man, and he has a team of volunteers, and if we can publicise this and get more volunteers for him, I mean, I volunteered, I'm on his website, and so if we can get more volunteers, each with their own trap, and some way to get this done, we can make a big impact at this stage of the season.
Yeah, I do deem that as urgent because they are in great proportion in Lithgow. They are, and they go all the way.
ask a question from the floor? Is any more consideration being given to carrying the closed council out before the meeting so we can mingle with the councillors after the meeting?
There was the last council and it was rejected. We have the closed council at the end of...
We saw it on live stream and it didn't actually come across on live stream.
None of the mics weren't turned on.
So if you haven't got your mic on live stream, we don't hear it on live stream.
Oh, I see. And I didn't have it on then either.
You're right. You're okay.
So a further question then, if we wait around till after close,
10A of the Local Government Act, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to the following information that would be, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage or on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. The report requests council's approval to call for expressions of interest in relation to the council-owned land in situation at Petra Avenue, to gauge the level and nature of the interest of the property and the community. Recommendation, council resolved to move into closed council to consider the confidential reports.
I'll second that.
Moved, Councillor McAndrews, seconded,
I'll second that.
Councillor Statham. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Yeah. Just have a recess for 3 minutes, just so as anybody wants to go out to the... because it is very, very, very late. You're gonna... I'll give you permission to have a sleep in the morning.
General manager's made it through. I thought he was going to collapse before.
I might just leave you